quick apology for my audio. I hope it sounds fine. It seemed fine, but it might change if I get louder. I just moved, so I'm still trying to figure out my audio setup. I probably have to re-record the video I just recorded because I re-listened to it back and I was like, why the fuck did I think this sounded good? So yeah, I'm struggling. Anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of the Nen Show Podcast. It's your host Craftsdwarf here with Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
I was going to say, your audio sounds all right on my end, but I know Discord kind of tends to cut off some of the lower, the quieter stuff. So
right.
I'm sure it will be fine. But I'm excited for this discussion.
Yeah. Where do we start? I guess personal histories with Ayakashi Triangle. Because I started reading it because I've still been doing it, but for the last few years, every time a new Jump series starts, I start it, and at one point, was I ever caught up with everything? I think there was a brief period where I was caught up with everything, but I finally got over that, and now if I don't like a series and just am not getting anything out of reading it weekly, I will just drop it. Ayakashi Triangle was one of those series that started relatively early on into me doing that, and it's now one of the few that has both gone on for a decent period of time and also ended. I think the only other one I can think of off the top of my head is Mashal, where I feel like most of the other series that have started are either still going or they got canceled relatively early, 6 volumes at latest for some of them, like Magu-chan. It's just interesting because I've now been doing this long enough that the series went on for 3 years. So, and it's over. And it's like, oh, okay. I'll definitely say, and because it also ended this year. This is the newest series that, as far as start dates go,
and end dates.
Yes, and I think that's even including Dragon Ball Super and Boruto at this point, because we talked about it and we were realizing that it's the only series, the newest series we've read on the Nen Show as far as the date that it started was Fairy Tail, excluding sequels to prior stories that we'd read. And we were like, wait a minute, that's a pretty big gap. 15 years? That's the newest series we've read. We've mostly been reading older stuff because of the blocks, basically, and doing the old blocks. But now it's okay, now it's Ayakashi Triangle, which started very recently and ended very recently. So like you said, no, you're right. Yeah, it definitely had the lead, because I was thinking Wano and Boruto, but no, Ayakashi Triangle has definitely had the most recently published chapters that we've read on the Nen Show, which we'll read next time. And I guess as far as how my opinion has changed on it is that what tends to happen is you read or go through something so long, especially something that you don't love, and you just start feeling this is the thing that I'm reading. But it did kind of click for me literally in the last arc. And I was curious about rereading it, and I'm definitely getting way more appreciation out of it. Another series that's it's also relevant to the Weeb Club, I bring it up all the time, is how Kimetsu no Yaiba, where Nun and Vindy were reading it weekly, and they were pretty negative on it, but then both of them reread it either towards the ending or after it ended, and they both came around on it really hard, and that and I was able to go into it the first time knowing some of the discourse. So I enjoyed it from the beginning, but I've just had the thought of when a series ends, I want to try or even an arc ends, I want to have the ability to reread it, and that way I'm not stuck on the feelings that you get by engaging with the story over a long period of time, right? I think I talked about it with Wano, where it's reading it weekly for 3 or 4 years, it was good, but I didn't have any strong feelings on it until I read it for the Nen Show, and that put me on a giant One Piece kick. I made 4 fucking One Piece videos, partly because of the Netflix series, but also and then I just one, and then 2 of them based on the stuff that has come since Wano, not based on, but referent to, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's just the difference, and even now with Ayakashi Triangle, where it's I had a click moment while reading it, and now going through it again, I've noticed way more things that I never picked up on weekly, and it's not quite reading it for the first time because I do have the context of the first time reading it. So it's just affirming how this is a good way for me to go through stories, where even if I don't enjoy things in a weekly basis, the fact that I have the chance to enjoy them way more rereading them after the fact, I think is like I'm fine with that, and I think that's cool for me. And but anyway, Ayakashi is also, it's a special series for you, and I'm kind of curious as to like what even drove you to read it, I guess.
It's kind of funny. I had this thought in the last few days of like, sometimes I get, spiteful comments on like my Togashi's trans characters video or something like that. Like, oh, imagine, watching an anime for the diversity. How lame or whatever. And it's like, that's never the case. But with this manga, I was definitely recommended it on the basis of the gender bend stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, because I have a friend who, I don't know if they still read everything in Jump to this point, but they were at one point, I think, or trying to. Mm-hmm. And they thought I'd like Ayakashi Triangle, and they mentioned that like, it's this battle series, and it's got kind of this, gender aspect to it, which of course, it's me. So that piqued my interest. So I think it actually ended up being the first manga that I like caught up to and was reading weekly, because it was before Hunter x Hunter had published another 10 chapters.
Right. And even then it's like, oh, cool, 10 chapters. Like, it feels different compared to reading a manga weekly for like, several years versus like a volume at a time, right?
Yeah.
So it
was like, so it pretty much ended up being like the first manga that I was reading weekly and like keeping up with the weekly chapters. It's actually kind of funny because I did end up catching up to Blue Box at one point, but now that Ayakashi Triangle's not publishing, I don't have that same motivation to check the chapters weekly, so I've kind of fallen off of that. But so I last it was like May, like over the kind of like the early summer of 2022, I think, that I kind of went through it, and I caught up shortly after it made the jump from the Weekly Shonen Jump proper to Jump Plus. Mm-hmm. I believe it was chapter 94, I think was the one where I caught up, because I had like a whole tweet thread on it. Mm-hmm. And what was I gonna say? Like, it was something where I remember reading it at the time. The earlier material, like, I had thought that it kind of took a while to really, like, quote unquote, get good. But I think that was more so just kind of like, I was speculating certain things could happen, but I'm like, oh, but this manga's not going to deliver on it because that'd be too good for me. And then it's like the further the manga went along, it's like, oh wait, no, that early material was actually like, I didn't have to doubt where the story was going to go.
Yeah, no, rereading it, like, definitely, yeah, no, again, like I said, I got a lot out of rereading it. I guess the other thing that I just think is notable is because, like, I don't know, with so many series, especially popular ones, like, I'd like to think that they find their audience, but I feel like, for some reason, Ayakashi Triangle, probably because it's also, like, an ecchi series, and it, it's just kind of like, those are kind of inherently looked down upon, community wise. So the fact that one of my friends just unironically is like, yeah, this is literally like a 10 out of 10, one of my favorite manga. Like, I think it's like next, like only behind like maybe Hunter and One Piece, or like no Bloom into You also, like, as far as shonen series specific or battle shonen specifically.
Okay, I'm gonna say Bloom into You is the shonen.
It's not a battle series.
No, it's not.
I don't know what demographic it's aimed at, but off the top of my head, but
I think the manga magazine is Dengeki Daio, which I believe is shonen.
Okay, so it is a shonen manga, but it's not a battle shonen manga. Basically, it's just like, it's if Ayakashi Triangle isn't top 5, it's top 3, right? Yeah. Which is like, and the only ones I can see you Naruto surpassing it if you reread it. But like right now, it's like, it's like, it's not a series I would expect to see on someone's like 3x3 or whatnot. But it's like, it is like a favorite of yours.
It can't not be there for me. Yeah.
Well, and my perspective on that,
today.
My perspective on that is like, I've been like, we joked about it on the Nen Show, because whenever you bring it up, I'd be like, let's go, because it's like, because I just felt like it's okay, at least at the time reading it, where now I'm like, okay, no, this is good.
Yeah, no, like, but I definitely remember talking to you like weekly when the chapters would come out.
And I basically, it's like part of my reason for being your hype man is one, because like you're my friend, and two, it's like, yeah, I do think it's just an interesting series to call a favorite, basically, and wanting to hear your perspective and how it connects to you interests me. And so we have already talked about it, but now I'm worried this is going to be a 5-hour episode, because like we've had the running joke on the Nen Show where like when like the Okama came up in One Piece, or Gintama, or fucking Krona from Soul, like we have 20-minute conversations about gender, right?
Yeah,
like that's like been a normal thing, Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter, Yamato and Wano, like it just happens. And so, but this is like a whole fucking series about gender. Like it's all 16 volumes, so it's like, well, shit. So I'm just like, oh boy, it's gonna be a thing.
I definitely pushed to do a Nen Show discussion on this because I want to make a video on it. Like I had already started writing some stuff like last year, but a bunch of stuff happened, and a lot of the videos I was working on are still kind of in limbo, except for the Shounen movie video, which hopefully I can get done by the end of the year.
Let's go.
But like, yeah, Ayakashi Triangle is definitely, I feel like it's an interesting series, both in terms of like what it's actually doing in the subject matter, but also just like in terms of my experience with it, because I feel like me liking this manga definitely is like an evolution on just kind of how my tastes have changed over time. And I definitely think part of that comes down to like me like starting like my transition and like taking hormones and stuff, and just kind of figuring out more about myself and like feeling more comfortable in my own skin. Because I know like over the years on the Nen Show, like anytime any kind of like sexuality or pervert joke would come up or anything even like remotely in that realm, I would always kind of be put off by it. And you know, it's like now that I'm more comfortable in my own skin, it's like I'm, you know, I feel like a lot of that negativity was kind of me like projecting outward, probably some sort of like internal like disgust, or I don't know what the word would be, but you know, I feel like now I'm just kind of at the point where like if there's sexuality in media, it's like, you know, there are ways it can be done poorly, but it's not like I don't see it as inherently bad anymore.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a level of desensitization, I think, as well, right? Like, because people get so mad about, like, Mineta or Sanji, right? Because they're not unlikely to be, like, the first perfect character you encounter, right? Like, One Piece and MHA are these very entry-level titles, but when you've been around the block, so to speak, like, I think, I vaguely remember Shaves talking about it, but, like, when I thought about it, I thought of Cutie Honey, where it's like, okay, yeah, if you're mad about Sanji or Mineta, sure, try watching a classic anime where every fucking character is a pervert character. I swear to God, it's like there's like girls, villains who are also all girls, and then pervert characters. And even like one of the teachers who's a woman is a pervert character. I'm just like, it's exhausting. Fucking exhausting, because everyone is fucking creeping on this main character. I'm like, fuck, dude. Just right? So I understand not liking it for sure, right? And especially, like, even something I've been thinking about lately, because, like, some women will lean into stories with lots of men, you know, fujoshis, not, you know, but because, like, they want to avoid female sexuality, right? Yeah. So it's like, I absolutely understand people having a problem with that element and not wanting anything to do with it, right? Especially in Western, you know, culture, where I feel like that's much less common, or or it's like, it's, no, how do I put this? It's different culturally as well. Like, it was interesting seeing, because I don't think you've seen the One Piece Netflix, but Sanji is very much like, he still has a womanizer element, but they're definitely not doing, he's not doing the pervert thing, basically, because it's like that wouldn't gel with the Western audience, right? Yeah. So just, you know, cultural differences. But anyway,
yeah, like I think you've talked about this even before. Like, I don't remember if you made a video on it about kind of like the pervert character and how
did. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like cultural stuff.
Yeah, I mostly remember talking about the bathrooms and how, like, in the West, bathrooms are a space of privacy and intimacy, where in Japan you can go to a public bathhouse and bathe with people, so there's more of a community idea to it. So the idea of like someone else, the idea of like peeping on in the bathroom, to a Westerner would be more terrifying in a sense, because it's an intrusion on a private space, where in the East it's crossing a line for sure. It's still illegal, but it's not as bad, if that makes sense. You're right. That was the point that I brought up in that video. So just it's a big I understand why people have a problem with it, but like, we've been around the block. We've been doing this podcast for so long. We've been in anime and manga for even longer. Like, it's just not gonna. It's just gonna take more to bother us, I suppose.
Yeah, I know that was even gonna be like kind of a talking point in my video on Ayakashi Triangle whenever it gets written. That like, I think that it felt like. A reason why I could see this being hard to recommend to people is because it does lean very heavily into like all of the kind of ecchi tropes you could think of, like accidental groping scenes, or just like there are a number of times where like there won't be anything horny happening, but sometimes the framing just is like an upskirt or something, because it's like this manga has like a weekly horny quota, it feels like.
It's an ecchi series 100%.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like so I was definitely going to talk about that, and kind of how there is to some extent like like you said, like, because we've been around the block and we've seen so much stuff at this point, like we've seen the tropes, they come up over and over. It's just kind of like like maybe like just a kind of a tired anime cliche more than like something that's like, I don't know. Whereas if someone saw it for the first time and like had no exposure to those kind of tropes and scenes, that they'd probably maybe be more put off by it or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
But the cool thing about this manga is that, like, we've talked about with our battle series that these narratives kind of existing in a world of battle. Well, Ayakashi Triangle is that, and also a world of horny. So, like, because it's an ecchi, it's like there's gonna be the shonen battles stuff, there's gonna be fight scenes, and there's gonna be fan service.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, yeah, because I remember seeing comments of like people like, "Oh, it doesn't need to be like this," but it's like, it's an ecchi manga. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. It's just part of the series' identity, right? Like, it's just such a strange. And I mean, I'm also thinking about, there was an article, I'll remember to link it lately, about basically they were someone talked about how there aren't sex scenes in Hollywood anymore, and sort of talking about how this sort of puritanism moralization of media and how we consume it, and arguing that like the fact that it's there, like is meaning in itself, basically, and sort of like, so there's a literacy aspect in there where it's just like, people basically arguing against people, because people like, oh, it needs to be there for a reason, and it's like, well, as someone who analyzes media, like, the reason is supposed to be determined by the reader, basically. Not that like there isn't obvious signposting at times, but it's like, I don't know, it just feels like the manga is what it is. It knows its audience, and that's it's fine. Just let it exist. You can just not read it. Read something else. So I don't know. But
I mean, like, Ayakashi Triangle is definitely a case where, like, asking does it need to be this way is like, there's a lot of characterization, I think, done through the way that sexuality is incorporated. Like, obviously Suzu is a big example of that.
Well, you mentioned like, oh, the manga's horny. I'm like 90% of that is her, like, because she is. There's one joke where it's like, no, I'll bring it up later, but I just remember just the misunderstanding she'll have, and just like where it's like, she's so lewd, man. It's so funny. Right, but no, I lost my train of thought because of that. Suzu tangent.
I also kind of feel like, well, maybe I'll just save that point for later.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm about to like finally get to the manga. Like we spent over 15 minutes just on the preamble. But yeah, we start out. I don't know, I just noticed, like, because obviously Suzu has a sweet tooth, and it's like, not only is she eating food, but she has the fucking candies on her
oh yeah,
coat. And it's like, well, come on, you're just like, you just she just likes sweet things. But yeah, we get introduced to obviously our two main characters and Shirogane, who is more interesting than I remembered. Which is like, I mean, obviously he's like funny, and he's causing. He has a dynamic with them that really reminds me. I don't think you've gone through either of these series, but Ushio and Tora and Natsume Yujincho. I think that's how it's pronounced. Where it's like there's
I've heard of both of those.
Yeah. Where basically they have a sort of monster yokai Ayakashi who like wants to kill them but can't or won't, basically. For story reasons. Like in Ushio and Tora, the main character takes a spear that was sealing away Tora for so long, and he wants to kill Ushio, but the spear is sentient and keeps him at bay, basically. So I don't know, I just recognize that dynamic of like, who you got Shirogane, who's just this like Ayakashi king who wants his throne back, and he also wants, but he also hates love and romance, and he's heteronormative, and that backfired wonderfully for him. But getting ahead of myself.
One thing that sorry. No, say.
I was just going to say, before we really get into discussion, I mentioned it last time, we have both read the series, so I don't think we'll need to spoil later stuff, but I'm warning you that, because I remember when we were at Hunter x Hunter, I prefaced it with the same warning, where it's like, we've both gone to at least where the 2011 anime ends. If we want to bring up stuff from later, we might. So I want to preface that here with the same thing. So if you're worried about spoilers, I can't see them because I think the material is interesting enough on its own that I don't think we need to, but it might happen. So I just want to give a warning, because as far as spoilers goes. So anyway, you were going to say.
I was going to say, like, one thing I did, like, I saw when I looked up, like, online, like, the scans for this manga, because this release, usually, like, Shonen Jump stuff is released or localized in English by Viz, but I assume because of the subject matter, this one was done by 7 Seas, and I noticed that they don't have the typical author comments in the physical volumes, but when I looked it up online, I was able to find author comments for the first 2 volumes, and I thought those were really interesting because, like, just on the topic of Shirogane, the second volume little author comment, like, Yabuki is talking about, like, when he was working on Black Cat, he hadn't owned a cat, so he pictured them as these, like, mysterious beings, but then it's like, the insert has, like, a picture of a cat that looks just like Shirogane, and it's like, this is how I see them now. So just, like, the fact that Shirogane is just, like, just this...
a flat little fluff marshmallow goober, like, who's just, I see it. That's great, actually.
I haven't read Black Cat, but, like, after reading Ayakashi Triangle, I'm definitely curious to. I have seen the first season of the To Love Ru anime, so I have, like, a little bit of experience with Yabuki's previous work, but I don't think he wrote that one. I think he was just the...
Oh, just the artist. I didn't know that. Okay, because I was going to say, I thought it was interesting, because, so I on purpose, I did read Ranma 1/2, recently. On accident, I also read Stop Hibari-kun, which is another Jump gender manga, I guess. Well, okay, another next to Ayakashi Triangle. I don't want to imply that I think Ranma 1/2 was a Jump manga. I know it's not. Sorry, I just realized the wording could be read that way. Just because I think I saw it was Frog-kun on Twitter. She tweeted about how Yabuki seems to like Rumiko Takahashi because he's been involved in both To Love Ru, which is like, alien, waifu comes down.
Yeah, and then, very Urusei
Ayakashi Triangle is got the martial arts, and then the gender bending, kind of, I'm sure they're both unique and stand on their own, but it's definitely just like an interesting, like, it's Rumiko fucking Takahashi. She's a legend, right? Like, she's made like 4 hits at least, like 3 of them in particular being really big hits, so it's like, she's the GOAT. All right, so
like, if I can find any Yabuki interviews for the video, that'd be cool, because, like, with how I got into it and how, like, I'm kind of framing it in the video is that, like, the year prior I had watched Ranma, and that kind of hit a lot of similar, like, similar appeal for me, where it had the action, it's got the gender bend, and obviously that being a manga written in, like, the late 80s, early 90s, so it's definitely a very different time period, and so the way that it approaches the subject is interesting. But also, like, comparing the two, it's like Ayakashi Triangle definitely fits the format of the Nen Show because it does have a more, like I said, it's like a world of battle. So like the story progresses in a way that like a battle manga would, where like, there's this, like in this reading, we get like characters that are at like a higher level of strength. And there's like the progression of the powers. Whereas like in Ranma 1/2, it's more like the action is there to kind of like, it's primarily like a rom-com, and the action's there to kind of
facilitate one or the other, right?
Yeah,
for sure, right? Like just the fact that the world of battle in Ranma is like anything goes martial arts. Well, they do like rhythmic gymnastics martial arts, ice skating martial arts, eating competition martial arts, and it's very silly and fun. Like, and it is fun. Like, and there's even one of my favorite arcs in Ranma was more of an action focused one, but it's definitely like. As much as I like Ranma, I feel like discussing it would be painful in the Nen Show just because of how like episodic it is. Not in a chapter, but just because it's like, oh, here's this arc, and there's not a lot of change or progression, and so I feel like basically imagine Gintama, but where I think mutually we'd have more interest in it, but discussion wise, it just doesn't work for this format, I think. But yeah, as far as I guess comparisons, like really there weren't many because a lot of it is so broad and there are really different. But like honestly, the two biggest points I thought were interesting were one is Kuno, who he's in love with Akane in Ranma, and he's also in love with female Ranma, the pigtail girl as he calls her. But he's more antagonistic towards Ranma, and that reminded me when I got to him, I thought of Soga, who he's basically in just that he sees Matsuri as his rival, but he's also shy around women. So there's like he just has that awkwardness with female Matsuri. So that just made me think of Kuno a little bit. And then also just comparing how Matsuri and Ranma treat their femininity as someone who internally was raised a man and would identify as male. But like, because Ranma doesn't give a shit, he'll just like go around topless and not give a fuck like a guy would, But Matsuri obviously does have a lot of like feminine shame, if that makes sense, and skittishness about that, which is just, it was interesting, like reading 38 volumes of Ranma not giving a shit, but being willing to use his gender as a woman to like oh, we need to catch Happosai, and he'll just like show his tits, and Happosai will grab him, and he'll like so he can beat him up or whatever, just shit like that, or just disguises
disguising to try and like manipulate Ryoga.
Like pretending to be his little sister. What the fuck is going on in your head, Ranma? Oh, what a manga. Matsuri isn't really doing that at all. But it's just I don't know. It was interesting going from one to the other and seeing like how very different they are in these ways, or similar in other ways. So I don't know. It was neat.
Yeah, that's why like. When I make the video, like it's definitely like the framing device is that like kind of going off of my attachment to Ranma, but like I'm not, it's like a comparison for the sake of, I think like I'm mostly going to be talking about Ayakashi Triangle, but I do also think that the differences between them make them both interesting, kind of looking at them kind of in the same conversation. I think that kind of made me appreciate aspects of both more.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you did mention earlier that I forgot the timeline because I was, but no, you got into Ranma first and then Ayakashi later. So yeah, back to the manga after we talked about it for like a page and then
we're like 20 plus minutes in and we've talked about like the first page.
It's gonna be a 5-hour discussion. Oh god, we have 69 chapters, Matt. 69 chapters. Not nice. It is not nice anymore.
I definitely deliberately ended this reading on that number, but also like that was where it worked in the story. No,
I finished the chapter and I was like, wow, what a good place to end off on this half of the reading. Like, wow, that's perfect, basically, for multiple reasons. But anyway, so yeah, it establishes Suzu and Matsuri. We have have your legs always been this dummy thick? Like, what? Matsuri, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I like how when she like kicks him, like, oh, it's the slapstick gag. But like he does the like the substitution and is like, oh, it's just a log, but it's like, but I still kicked you, and it's like, yeah, well, you'd hurt yourself if you kicked a log, which is just, I feel like that says a lot about like immediately like Matsuri as a character towards like being very protective of Suzu. So it's like he'll take the punch if it means like Suzu doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, and well, I was also even thinking about how, yeah, and that goes into it, like, especially with some of the stuff at the very end with, like, Suzu, oh, just protecting her is only, like, it's keeping her from growing, basically, and just, like, remembering that, and then going back to this earlier stuff, it's like, yep, there it is from the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like the progress. There's so much that this manga does that I really appreciate.
Yeah. Then they also establish how, Suzu is basically an Ayakashi, and Matsuri used to be cool with them, but, his job involves fighting them, so he kind of came to pull away from that, and, because they can be really dangerous, and even Shirogane is like, oh, cute little chubby kitty, nope, king of the Ayakashi. Yep, and sure enough, Matsuri's talking with his grandpa, and, Shirogane is gonna, he just, eat the Ayakashi medium, get all that Haku energy.
Yeah, I think it's funny how Matsuri's grandfather, you'd think in like a typical battle series like this, if there's like an older figure who, taught the protagonist what they know and yada yada yada, that like, I was definitely reading this manga expecting him to get like some kind of moment where he steps up to do something. But there's a different character who does that, and the one time he does try to do something, he just throws out his back because he's old.
Oh, see, I thought you were gonna bring up how it's like, because we were just talking about Ranma, and I thought you were gonna mention perfect characters like Happosai or Jiraiya, where it's like, but no, he's not like that at all, which is refreshing. And it's like, the series doesn't need more horny. We could just, it does a plenty good job of having horny without having explicit pervert characters. So
yeah, it's like, well, there is one pervert character, but like,
oh no,
that's Suzu.
Yeah, I was about to say it's different when it's the main character.
Oh, okay, bit. No, there's also Reo.
Yeah, I was gonna bring her up because she is just like, Jesus, dude. She's funny.
Also, just a notice I didn't really pick up on in the manga, but when I watched it in the anime, which just for a little tangent, I don't recommend the anime. It's not great. It's like, it feels like as one-to-one an adaptation as you could get. So it's like, I like the voice acting and I like the soundtrack, but otherwise I don't think it brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where I think, yeah, it's like if they're about the same, then at that point you might as well just recommend the original, or at least what your preferred medium. But like, I feel like if you're gonna watch an anime and spend watching 12 episodes to go through like 24 chapters, then it's like just read it, unless you really just can't read manga. And if you can't read manga, you wouldn't be listening to the Nen Show.
Yeah, like saying. What the anime does have that I picked up on here is, and it's in the manga, like the character design is the same, but there is a character in To Love Ru who also is like, has a lot of gender going on, like has a boy form and a girl form, and so they're like on the magazine that Seigen is reading.
Oh, okay, I would not have caught that reference.
It was easier to pick it up in the anime because they like focus on it briefly.
Okay,
and I had seen the To Love Ru anime, so I recognized the design.
I'm looking at the magazine, and yeah, I really can't make much out here because like it's usually like in the one panel like you see the ahoge and the heaven word, but I can't really see the actual charter. But
I could just link you the screen caps actually if you wanted.
I can see it better on another panel. I can kind of see it there, but no, the screen caps would be cool actually.
But yeah, I guess while I also brought up To Love Ru, just to get the volume comments out of the way, and just to actually try and talk about the manga for a bit. Like a theory I kind of had with Ayakashi Triangle is that like and the like first volume like author insert, like Yabuki talks about like the subject matter of this manga has been considered niche, but I see it as an extension of the kind of work I've been drawing for the past 20 years, which considering he like Black Cat, to my knowledge, is a more standard like battle series, and To Love Ru is
right,
more ecchi,
a more
not
of a
really
standard
an
ecchi,
action.
and this is like a synthesis between his stuff, basically, is what you're maybe the implication there. Yeah, no, actually, that's interesting. Because I think I knew that, but I hadn't considered that. Oh yeah, I guess Ayakashi would be both. So no, and I'm even more curious to get to those two series. So yeah. But yeah, Matsuri is able to. Sorry. Degenerate.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm sorry if I go on too many tangents. I just hope it's interesting.
No, that's fine. I'm interested. But yeah, to finish the Matsuri is able to steal away Shirogane or his power basically. But Shirogane is a spiteful bitch, and I don't want these two to have a happy ending, so I'm gonna turn one of them into a girl. Yep, Matsuri, and it's Matsuri now, which is because it's always so weird seeing guy Matsuri, because like obviously I recognize it as Matsuri, but it's not Matsuri though, because 99% of the time Matsuri's in the manga, it's in girl form, so it's just like, yeah, that's Matsuri. So
yeah, I just sent you the screen caps. The left one is Ayakashi Triangle, and the right is To Love Ru.
Oh, yep. Oh, the colors, yeah, for sure. That would give a good indication for sure.
And like this character, also being very gender, I think also kind of plays into Ayakashi Triangle being kind of like a synthesis of his past work. I'd really I'm debating if I should read Black Cat before making the video, just to properly make an argument there or something.
Well, we might have the opportunity. Oh yeah, speaking of reading stuff, I was going to say this is also this is the first time we've read a manga on the Nen Show that we've both read before. Like, we've had stories like Naruto or Hunter x Hunter that we've gone through before, or Yu Yu Hakusho, but never both have read the manga, because you talked, and you mentioned that, yeah, the Nen Show has been your excuse to read manga, so this is like the one time where you've read the manga first, which is neat. So
yeah.
But yeah, Matsuri is becoming a student at the school, because to protect Suzu, and or I guess Matsuri was always at school, but now he wants to get closer to the friend group.
Yeah, something that I really like about this as a premise is that Matsuri and Suzu kind of have like this inverted, like Suzu's been excluded from the world of Ayakashi, and so like Matsuri has to try and like bring Suzu into his world, and then like with Matsuri, he's never really like socialized.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of just like, hanging out with Suzu. And so like Suzu then has to bring Matsuri kind of into, the human world and like making friends and stuff. So
which is, I guess it's also interesting because I hadn't thought about that from the perspective, but to add to it there's also an inverse there, because Suzu is closer to an Ayakashi, yet she's the one who's been living as a human.
Oh.
And Matsuri is a human, but he's the one who's been living in the world of Ayakashi, fighting them and stuff. Like, so in a way, by basically the gender change, like what Shirogane is hoping will tear them apart, in actuality, it's giving them like an opportunity to like not only come together, but also enter the worlds they sort of like belong in, which I think, if you read that from a trans perspective, like Matsuri belongs as a girl in a sense, if right, you could read it that way. Where so basically Matsuri entering the human world is also him becoming a girl and coming to find an appreciation and strength in that alternate gender, basically, right? So yeah, I don't know.
I had never put that other part of it together, but now I'm just like, oh, that's going in the video.
Nice. Well, because it's like, I don't know, it's definitely, because I'm a cis guy. So me reading, especially like reading Ranma, then Hibari-kun, and then Ayakashi, like one after the other, like I'm inherently going to be coming at it from my perspective, but there's also a level at which like I want to understand and be wary of other perspectives that aren't my own, right? Because and yeah, so like obviously, like you mentioned it with your Ranma tweet, your famous boy swimsuit tweet, and you had people, because you connect to Ranma as a trans woman, but you also had trans men commenting on that, and I brought up one perspective of you with how Ranma's mom kind of like, because of that whole thing, he has to present as a girl to her, and it just felt very much like I don't know, it just felt interesting with a parent having obviously, like, in that case it was like she didn't know it was her son, basically, but like it was just a whole interesting situation. And I feel like I got something similar, because obviously Matsuri does identify as a man, still, just like Rama does, but it's, I don't know, it's still interesting to consider either perspective. And that said, it's still me coming up from the outside, so hopefully I won't overstep, but I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like with the way that this manga kind of like, that's one thing that they both have in common, by nature of it being like a gender bend premise, is that like that kind of inherently like that kind of inherently challenges like gender roles, or like concept of like sexuality and stuff like that. So yeah, seeing that stuff explored is interesting.
Yeah, I guess, and it's all like, again, bring up Ranma, where it's like, because Ranma is an older series, so there's some level at which you can kind of see it being couched in a level of traditional values, but it is still really interesting, right? Because the premise is so fundamentally interesting, so yeah, like,
I think the way that Ranma uses it has like a really interesting, and I kind of talked about it in my video, that I feel like the way it portrays masculinity through like the other men in the series, but also kind of the way that Ranma can kind of float between, and the way that he kind of because the way he carries himself as a guy is I mean, I talked about it in my video. I don't want to ramble on too much.
That's fair. But yeah, Matsuri, sorry.
Well, also just on like the gender talk, like and I don't know if this is a case of like me reading too much into it, but I feel like the way that it introduces Matsuri and Suzu, kind of being the only two in their world who can see Ayakashi, it just kind of felt similar to how like the way that queer people experience the world is like, it's definitely different to like the norm, and so I kind of thought that maybe there's like a parallel there.
Well, I mean, what you just made me think of was like just a literacy element of just like certain things that like someone who is straight and not familiar with things, like they like, where someone versus someone who is queer, they might recognize like they see things, and they see things differently, right? So like they'd pick up on stuff that like like they could tell like, oh, this character is meant to be like gay coded or whatever, because they're more literate in that way, where a straight person might not recognize it at all. I don't know, you just had, when you said that, I just had that thought of like seeing the world differently, right? Because if you have a different perspective.
And also kind of the way that with regards to like Suzu and Matsuri kind of forming that friend group with Yayo and Lu, like the way that they initially kind of like, oh, it's a secret, we can't, like, they can't see Ayakashi, so we can't let them know what's going on. We have to just play it off. But then kind of like as the manga goes along, they kind of express desire, like, I wish they could see the world the way we do. And eventually, that secret being, revealed in like the chapter with Yayo.
Yes. Well, even Lu adds an interesting layer to things that I'll talk about later, because they're good. I think I like Lu a little more just because she's silly and cute, and but I also like what she adds to even the gender conversation. But we'll get to that. Because Matsuri is still Suzu's guardian, even as a girl. Just cuts up the Cyclops like it's no one's business. And then Matsuri introduces to himself to Yayo and Lucy, or Lu. And also I like the way the chapter ends where are we sitting a little too close on the bus, and Suzu's like, no, it's not weird at all.
Yeah, and like even as a girl he's really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
also
there's
just
also
the name of chapter 2 being Girlfriends.
Oh yeah, there was another chapter that was like inside Matsuri, and I'm like, okay, because I thought about the manga Inside Mari, and it's like, wait, is this a deliberate reference, or is this only in the English one? Like, is the original Japanese title, like, what's going on here? This isn't. I just because that's another. I haven't read it, but I'm familiar with the premise, and that it's also another gender manga. So yeah, But yeah, there's also in the next chapter there's a note about how like, you know, Matsu's like, it's hard being a girl, and you have Suzu doing all the girl coaching, like watching the skirt and stuff. Because, you know, obviously his body language is gonna be, you know, boyish because he's used to being a boy, but like, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like when we were talking about Ranma, like kind of the difference between the two is that I feel like Ranma, unless there's like something he can get out of it for himself, you know, doesn't really put in that kind of effort to like try and match that like body language or demeanor. He just is Ranma, but Matsuri kind of is like, you know, tries to kind of fit in a little more.
Yeah. But then Shirogane steals the scroll that will release his powers, and
a naked human girl wouldn't dare come out to chase me, and Matsuri just no hesitation. It's like, oh right,
it's Suzu. Matsuri's prepared to, you know, exercise Shirogane, so he won't fuck with them anymore. But Suzu, you know, does want you know, Matsuri to be able to turn into a boy again. So.
I think another reason why this story kind of resonated with me is that, like, you know, obviously I'm a fan of Naruto, so like all the kind of ninja aesthetics and techniques.
That's true.
Cool.
Yeah. And I did actually notice because at the start of chapter 4, I just noticed because the scroll is being kept in between Matsuri's cleavage, and I just thought, well, it just made me think of Ranma and how just like, oh, he's using his femininity now, you know, like specific, like maybe this is he's putting it somewhere that like he couldn't as a guy, and it's just I just thought it was you know noteworthy.
Also, the number of times that one of the two says like, we're both girls, which is just like that line comes up in Yuri manga all the time.
I fucking bet.
But yeah, also like I think it's at the end of chapter 3, or are we on 4? No, I think that's 3. Where like Shirogane, you know, is up to some shit, and you know, there's kind of the hesitation of like, oh, if you take me out, then like the curse will stay on you forever and you'll be a girl forever. And Matsuri's just kind of like, okay, and goes to like take him out to protect, you know, like to do his like exorcist ninja work and like protect Suzu and stuff. He doesn't even really hesitate.
Well, yeah, no, because you mentioned Naruto and just ninja stories in general, because they have this regular idea of, like, you know, shinobi as tools. And it's like, yeah, of course Matsuri would, like, quell his humanity and his own personal desires for his mission, right? So, yeah, just, ninjas. But yeah, in the next chapter, we have Shirogane, you know, living as a regular cat alongside Matsuri. There was, when he eats the fucking kibidongo, I just thought it would, and then he compares the softness to like Suzu's thighs. I'm like, what the fuck is this? food wars? Like, yeah, but it was just a very etchy connection that the author was making there. So sure. We also get a little flashback with a young Suzu with longer hair. The first time Matsuri met Suzu, I think. Kind of. It's complicated.
You get that visualization of like Suzu is Matsuri's light, and that and like the way that like his grandfather mentions that, like, you know, you've always idolized Suzu, but you know there's kind of like a disconnect there where it's like Matsuri's still not really seeing Suzu as like another person. He's kind of like deifying her.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So real quick, so we're getting into the Matsuri Soga rivalry. Getting our rival boy, Edgy.
Let's go.
He's got a good. I like the sharp. I like the sharp teeth on human characters. Like something about that as a design thing is just like, yeah, I like it's. I don't know. I dig it. But what I also was gonna bring up is because I didn't realize this until later in the reading. I think it might have been very like recently, like in Shaman King, I was bringing up the Fuji and Raijin rivalry thing, and how like Naruto and Sasuke, you know, Ippo and Miyata in Hajime no Ippo, Matsuri and Soga. Soga is lightning fast, Ninokuru exorcist clan, and Matsuri manipulates the wind, so of course they're rivals, right? So I was like realizing later, I'm like, wait, hold on, there's a lightning wind dynamic here too. So just another example, So, if I had a nickel for every ninja manga that used the lightning wind dynamic, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. There's probably more. I don't know. Like, now that I'm picking up on it, it's like, fuck, how common is this?
Yeah, the character designs in this manga in general are just really good. Like, if there were to be an aesthetic character in this manga for me, it's Ninakuru, because everything about his design is so angular. Like, he's got kind of like the sharp eyes with the shadow over it, and his bangs come to a point, and the shark teeth. There's even a point where Lou mentions like, oh, he's like a half shark, half humanoid, and it's like, that's not a compliment. But yeah, just good designs.
Yes. And yeah, he's the nice guy, but they look like really like Hidoro in Gintama, right? Like Hidoro was like my favorite fucking character in Gintama, almost. Like, he was my aesthetic character, let's put it that way, where it's just like every time Hidoro's comes on, it's like, yeah, Hidoro, right? And Soga's got a little bit of that, where because I just like, he scares a teacher by like, please, here's all the money I have, please forgive me. Like, he's just angry. He just looks angry all the time. It didn't do anything. Just Soga good. I say Soga because it's easier and I'm lazy. But yeah, because they do call him Ninokuru a lot. But yeah, he's trying to kill Shirogane for ninja reasons. And yeah, there's also like they sort of talk about the wind motif, and how Suzu is the one keeping Matsuru's wind going, and where Soga sees that wind as something, as a rival, right? So for Matsuru's wind, but also he's a fucking no experience with women, so he just gets flustered by girl Matsuri, which is it's just a good what's it called, juxtaposition of personality traits. So yeah.
It's also, I think, just like one of what I find to be one of the funnier running gags. Like, I just love the progression of like, oh, here's a rival in love character, and he like develops a crush on Suzu, but then like he's such a bro about it that like when he realizes that Matsuri has feelings, he's like, all right, go for it, it's all yours. And he even like gives him like this hype speech. And then it's like, he goes from the rival in love to like developing like feelings for the gender swapped main character rival boy, and that's great.
Yep, it do be like that.
Yabuki cooked.
But yeah, the next chapter opens up with Yayo sexually harassing Matsuri, which yep.
This one was an accident though, because she tripped. That makes it better.
Is it though? But I don't know. I did remember one thing you said, because like just about like how one of the ways in which you respond to these kind of things. Where I just remember with in Wano, because you talked about how like Nami throughout One Piece is generally a character who's very like in charge of her own sexuality, but there was the moment in the Wano bathhouse where she wasn't, and that you didn't care for that very much. So it's like characters having control over their own bodies, and it makes sense as something to care about. But as I said, I realized Matsuri specifically is a character who doesn't have control over his own body right now. So but I understand at least it's, I gotcha.
Yeah, like I think that is kind of a recurring gag, and maybe that's where like it's like thematic, like you said, that he doesn't really have control over his own body. So like the fact that he is constantly objectified and like taken advantage of, whether accidentally or intentionally or through some shenanigans. But like, it is also a case where that kind of just happens to
everybody.
Like,
yes,
all the female characters outside of maybe like,
I mean, even
one powerful one.
Like it is mostly female characters, but then I did remember like Matsuri was like, when he was a guy, he was like just mostly naked, and Suzu was like, she was thirsty. So it's definitely not the same way. Like the guys are not even when in Matsuri in that moment is not being treated the same way as the girls are. But I did think about how I brought up, I'm pretty sure, in my fairy tale tirade response and the podcast, of just like how the Urza moment is, I kind of came around on it in the sense that like it's doing this on purpose for a reason, even if it's like not good to go through because of like but that's then it also does the same thing like Lucy. It's fairy tale. It's weird. I'm fine with it, but I'm rereading it at some point. But
yeah, I feel like it's like with Ayakashi Triangle, it's something like I'd understand if someone just kind of took it at surface level and, it is doing the tropes while at the same time, like, there is typically reason for it. Maybe it's not always sometimes it's a little flimsy. Like, oh, he's looking for the scroll. He's not doing anything to harm you. It's like, that's not true. It's just the nature of the manga.
For sure. Though I was also going to bring up, this is something I noticed, because like more just like piecing together a few things that I'm just stupid and I've just missed it being explicitly stated more often, but like something about, I guess, eroticism with certain things in Japan, where it's like, so basically the 2 points I'm considering is, one, in Bakuman, there's a female author who was suffering some sexual harassment and stuff, and by Jump basically, and her editor. And one of the other basically, because she was being asked to draw panty shots, and she did, but they weren't like quote unquote good panty shots. And one of the things, another manga author like came in to help and tutor her, and and one of the things he mentioned was that like, it's not a real panty shot if the character doesn't feel embarrassed about it. And I combined that with well, there was also a discussion on Twitter, but in Muv-Luv Alternative Total Eclipse, there was a very silly thing that happened in which basically some military guys conspired to get some of their female officers in swimsuits for like promotional photo ops. And one of the characters in particular was embarrassed about it, and another character like all the guys were into it, and another character mentioned how the fact that she was embarrassed was just like making it more erotic for them. And I just thought about how like shame, more so than like in what I'm used to in America, it might be like part of sexual appeal, I guess. And so I just thought it was like, especially again comparing it to Ranma, where Ranma does not feel any shame, right? Like he does not give a shit as a not really, like his biggest shame is like being weak or defeated.
It's usually other people like Akane, being like, "Hey, what are you doing? This is embarrassing. Stop." And it's less Ranma himself.
Exactly. So it's like, as a Westerner, like I just react to like how the body is drawn, right? Like because Ranma is drawn in an attractive way a lot of the time, and so is Matsuri. But I guess taking from those examples, I guess there's a level of which like Ranma would be seen as less erotic, not just because in how Fem Ranma is drawn, but because of the level of shame being felt. Which is, I just thought is, it's just like, again, I'm kind of piecing this together just from the outside, where I feel like this would be much more intuitive to a Japanese perspective. I don't know if anyone has any like further observations or something to point to on that, because the discussion I was talking about was like, I think it happened during one of the kerfluffles about Fujoshi and fetishizing gay romance or whatever. And someone had a discussion that they posted to Twitter and translated, and they mentioned like discussing how shame is different between like Eastern porn and Western porn. And just, I don't know, it's just like these various threads have got me just thinking on the subject. And so I just wanted to just kind of bring it up.
I know that people... like, I've heard it kind of come up in context of, like, Kill la Kill, for example. Like, people are often, like, especially, like, here in, like, America and, like, the English-speaking sphere, like, people are quick to cite, like, the male gaze as, like, like, that can be the only way that things are read. So, like, I feel like Ayakashi Triangle is a case where, like, I'd understand if people saw it as, like, objectifying, but, like, also, like, it I think in some ways the way it uses sexuality is like empowering to the characters. It kind of like flips between, I feel like, where sometimes it seems like the point is that objectification and kind of like the loss of control. But then, you have characters like Suzu and Reo who are very, very upfront about their sexuality and, often are the ones kind of like, I don't know. So This is why we're like doing the podcast, and then I want to make it into a script after, because I'm trying to like put the thoughts together.
I mean, that's like I'm thinking back to some of my old takes on One Piece, that like the way I first talked about the Zabodi incident and how wrong I was on the Nen Show versus like how I framed it in the Luffy video, like working through it on the podcast. like that's a big part of why we did the Nen Show, was for content, right? So it's like, just throwing ideas out here. Like you already said, you're like, oh, that's something I want to use in my video. And it's like, awesome, great, that's what we're here for, right? So
yeah, there was I'll link it in the description if I can't think of like the name of the channel. Oh, it's Study of Swords did like a video on Kill la Kill and kind of talked about like, the lens of like the male gaze and like how, a lot of the important characters in that show are women, where it's like usually the male gaze is about like power and about like who, I forget which video it was, but I can like look it up and link it to you afterwards so we can reference it in the description. But I kind of feel like, maybe there could be some sort of application of that sort of like looking at it here. Cause like, I'm obviously coming at it from a more like, from like a queer lens. So, I guess that's kind of where, as far as like this being kind of difficult to recommend, it's like some people might just see it straightforward as like, oh, this is pandering to the male gaze because like it's in a shonen magazine, demographics, stuff like that. But I don't know.
Well, it is, and because like and I think it's like my issue with that specifically is more just like stories with male, because I think male perspectives should be represented, right? Like just like I think female perspectives should be represented and diversity, right? But at the same time, just because of the general culture we live in, the male stories just tend to get like bigger. They're right, like shonen is the anime and manga, right? Like it's kind of the face of it, right? Just stories specifically for young men, right? Right. So which like, and then you do have women who engage with these stories in ways that like are unique to women, but there's like a level of just having to exist in this larger space in a way that's like for stories that aren't necessarily quote unquote meant for, I don't know, it's just been a whole thing I've been thinking about, but yeah, I don't know, it's we want a more diverse and larger field, I guess, in some ways. So I don't know, I'm just saying words at this point. I'm gonna move on. But yeah, Matsuri is awkward around Suzu's girlfriends, but yeah, and Yayo gets possessed by Ayakashi, and Matsuri saves her, sort of is able to, I guess, now I'm thinking about it a bit more, because Matsuri as a protector sort of finding a place in the group in a sense to do that. Yeah. So it's like there's a level like, which I guess I'll bring it up now because I like some of the stuff we get with Lou later, because like I think they're talking about like a seinen manga, and she's just like, she enjoys it as a girl who's younger than 18, and she mentions that like she's fine with media interests crossing those kind of boundaries, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah, like the how do you pronounce it? Like Switch on Yoji or something like that. Like I do think like they mentioned seinen manga on the side, but I do think it's a shonen manga they're talking about.
Oh, maybe okay, I forget. Yeah, that's probably because, what I was remembering. Yeah.
Yeah, like the conversation is like, "Oh, I've never met another girl who like gets this series." And so and yeah, like she has that line about like, gender doesn't matter when it comes to this stuff.
Yes, that was what I was thinking of. Thank you. Well, I was also going to bring up, because there's later on where she does a fucking like Ultraman pose, and then on the following page she does the Ultra 7 like beam from the forehead pose, and it's like, of course she like Ultraman being a tokusatsu primarily targeted at like 7 to 10-year-old boys, right? But she also likes it. Of course she fucking does. She loves aliens. Ultraman is about aliens. Like, of course she fucking is into that shit, right? Come on. So it's just another example of her like crossing those sort of gender boundaries with her media interests, because like she's a girl, but what she likes happens to be she also likes these things that can be targeted as boys, right? So
so it's one of those things where I feel like there might like, because I guess I feel like I'm reading too much into it because I don't have all the connecting points I'm looking for, but there's so much like in the manga that kind of leans into that sort of like more of a queer reading. Just lines like that and interactions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, no, and speaking of that, like, I just noticed at the end of the chapter I hadn't thought about before, because there's the Tsujimori Masu Rao, a character whose name will never, ever come up on this podcast again. The English teacher who's, like, this big muscular guy, and it's like, yeah, he loves cats. Like, he's just, like, hugging Shirokane, and it's like, yeah, it's another, he's doing something that would be more associated with like, someone smaller or cuter, I think, and he's like, which, yeah, that's part of the gag there, right? The juxtaposition of like, a 40-year-old beefy teacher who's just like, kitty, and it's like, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, the way that Chiragane's character kind of progresses in this reading, it's interesting because, like, initially Matsuri's like, no, you can't, like, mingle among the humans, like, you can't have this disguise. But Suzu's like, well, who cares what the reason is if he wants to befriend humans? And so that does kind of, like, gradually humanize him through, like, he gets all these offerings from the students who are like, oh, it's a cute cat, here, take these like snacks, and so he's just a grumpy old dude.
Yeah, sure, getting good. Oh yeah, the next chapter opens with them talking about like a TV show with a character who's like a dog who transforms back and forth based on a kiss. And it's like, oh, it's hard not to think of Ranma because Ranma has so many other characters. Like, so this is one thing I didn't know about Ranma, so I'm going to say it just in case, because like I imagine most people who know about Ranma know that the main character changes gender. There's other characters who also change form. Like I didn't know the fucking panda that I've been seeing in Ranma stuff for so long was Ranma's dad, who also changes between panda and dad form, but through water. And then the rival boy turns into a cute little pig. There's another girl, Shampoo, who's in love with him. She turns into a cat. Like it's just there's a bunch of that shit in the manga, and I just didn't expect it at all because I just like. Yeah, I didn't know about it. Like fucking people keep fucking drowning in China, and that's a whole mechanic of the world, and it's so silly. So it's just like obviously the method is different, but and even just like looking at he's a dog in a suit, but it's just I don't know. It's just hard not to think about it with transformations. So yeah.
I thought that this little talking about the show and there being like kind of an interaction where Lou's like, well, if the guy's a dog, they might not accept the marriage registration. And like, oh, then a real man would endure it and hide his feelings, which, gay marriage isn't legal in Japan.
Oh my fucking God.
So like, I can't help but look at that and see like, oh, it's that kind, it's like nodding at like the trope of like, in a lot of Yuri manga, or just it might be in like boys love too, and just kind of in general that like, same-sex love is a phase that people have to grow out of. And like a lot of those older, like, is Onisama A kind of like one of those examples where it's like if, like older series where the manga would typically end where like the character, either ends up like with a guy and like ends up being straight washed, or they suffer some sort of like tragic ending. Like they're not allowed to get that happy homosexual like partnership. And so like, that coming up here, even just as an aside, as kind of a jokey thing, I just made the connection to
and of course Matsuri would be okay, especially at this point in the story, would be okay with burying a guy burying their feelings as a guy for
because it also ties into the narrative of Ayakashi Triangle that like he doesn't think he can be with Suzu because he's a girl. And so like even when they do end up being on the same page later, he's still hesitant because he doesn't feel like that's proper. He even says like on the page before this, like it's not right for a girl and a guy to kiss before marriage.
No, I was
which
just
is like
so
traditional, and like the fact that he just doesn't interact with people, so he has like these very traditional and kind of strict views on things like that. I was just thinking
about how like the his human connections are Suzu, he's been kind of distant from for a long time, and his grandfather, who is an old guy. Who, not to say, he seems pretty chill. Like he was watching idle shit, right? Like he's not completely like for gruff, So he's but like it's also just Matsuri. It still makes sense that Matsuri would have these sort of traditional values, just given this kind of interactions and bonds he'd have so far. Where Suzu, as we come to find out, like literally she doesn't have her memories, right? Because we find out through May that she's, as the Ayakashi medium, she should have fucking centuries worth, like several lifetimes of the memories. But Suzu specifically, is
I didn't
a
even
modern
think
person
about that.
in a sense, because
way
she only has like 10 plus years of memories. She doesn't even have her full lifetime, basically. So she's a modern person in a sense, because she's
the
only existed in
contrast
that
of
modern
that
yeah.
that Suzu is the reincarnation, but is more modern in the way that she carries herself because she doesn't have those past memories, whereas Matsuri is not a reincarnation. He's just, a guy existing in the modern world, but his views are a lot more traditional.
Right, because of his upbringing. No, just 8 chapters. Mathwiz, we've been talking about an hour for 8 chapters, and already I'm just like, and also it's like, I was going to bring up how like these are some interesting parallels between the two, like just from this early. So it's like, Yabuki cooking, indeed, like holy shit. But yeah, so the fucking way that, because so like going ahead and Soga's bringing up to Matsuri about how the Ayakashi mediums are basically also Ayakashi, and we might have to exercise her at some point, and which is him independently coming to sort of the realization of what's historically happened with the Ayakashi mediums. Like fucking Suzu's like at age 15 or 16 is the oldest one known in history, right? They all die young because they become discriminated against and eventually executed, or exercised rather. So Matsuri is of course getting mad about that, but Soga is like, it's just a possibility. He's just bringing this sort of sense of reality to Matsuri in a sense. But then also Matsuri's tits rub up against Soga and he gets flustered. So just the just like within one page, it's just like, oh shit, yep, okay. Just thought it was funny.
And the way that Matsuri is like half the time just oblivious to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's right. And then meanwhile, Suzu is fantasizing about kissing Matsuri, which creates an Omakage clone that kisses Matsuri, and like, oh boy, she's so lewd.
Yeah. Also, just like some of the foreshadowing in this manga is kind of crazy. Like, at the end of chapter 7, there's a brief it's another kind of flashback, and Suzu's like, oh, this one's so cute, let's name her Lippy, and it's like, that one comes back.
Yeah, I had that same reaction.
And yeah, I guess also kind of the dichotomy between like Matsuri insisting that like he knows more about Suzu than anyone else does because like they were so close as kids, and he's so focused on protecting her, when in reality it's like he knows nothing about the whole stuff with the Ayakashi medium and Suzu's past, and just the way that also kind of progresses throughout the story is interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, they talk about the maybe kiss. Matsuri says it doesn't count. But of course the Omakage is still out and about. She hungry. She going for the crepe stand.
The Omakage is just going to get this crepe, but then like almost breaks Suzu's like fingers trying to like rip the door, because it's like the shop is closed. Just the dedication is
and also like the fact that the crepe was just Shirogane transformed is just like the little crepe Shirogane with the cat mouth is cute, and the bite marks of course. Also I noticed so the Omakage biting in the second panel after where Shirogane has the teeth marks, the little wisps of energy of Haku energy on her head, almost they're all remind me of ears, which it wasn't. There's a certain form of Suzu that she gets later that has cat ears, and I'm just like, are no Yabuki? That's an accident, right? You can't be fucking doing that shit. I know I just noticed it. I was like, hey, wait a minute. So yeah. Sneaky motherfucker. I mean, you mentioned Lippy just 5 seconds ago, so it's like, yep, sneaky. This and then the chapter ends. Shirogane goes, "This confirms it. Suzu is indeed shameless."
I guess the one other thing that I could have mentioned about the anime earlier, but now that like Shirogane is like he plays a big part in like the the TV broadcast censorship of the anime, because like when the horny stuff is happening, they just use like cutouts of Shiragane's face to like cover everything, which it's like, I think that's really silly and clever, because it's like Shiragane is the one who's always trying to keep them apart. So like the fact sense. That in the anime adaptation to like they use the censorship in a clever way, like having it be Shiragane.
Of course he'd be the one to be like blocking the lewd parts, because he hates the lewd stuff most of all. So yeah, that's I like that. I'm looking at chapter 9, and Suzu's like, I want to talk to you after school, and just a page where Matsuri's like, I can't look her in the eye, and then Suzu gets close and is like, are you listening? And he's just got a silly expression with the eyes and the blush, and good. But yeah, then Soga and Suzu talk for a bit, and he's sort of sharing some tidbits on their exorcist world that she doesn't know about.
Of course, he drinks his coffee black.
Edgy boy. And of course, we also get the flashback with Ponosuke, where it's like, of course, Soga is a cool dude, and he's nice, and he helped little baby little bird. He's not really a baby. He's got glasses like an old person, but he's small. So
yeah, it's just more to like give the edgy boy like a cute familiar who just kind of floats around.
Yeah, and then Matsuri comes in a disguise. That doesn't work very well. Like, it's instantly broken by Suzu. Matsuri, what are you doing?
And Shiragane is just like, wow, I didn't think you were that bad an actor.
Rookie. And yeah, and then Soga started responding to talking with Suzu, and because he wanted to get closer to the Ayakashi medium, who he might have to exercise in the future, and it's like, oh my god, she's a goddess. And look, when the characters with like shadowy eyes, like the shadows kind of fade, and you see his actual like eye a little bit clearer, it's like, oh shit, let's go, shit's real.
I also think maybe there's something kind of interesting in the fact that like a lot of these characters who are in like the Exorcist Ninja world, like I feel like often kind of like Suzu ends up getting hyped up because she's the Ayakashi medium, less so than like her as a person. So like she, nope, wrong character. So Ninakuru kind of like getting closer to her, and then like coming to appreciate her as a person, and like, she's a goddess. So it's like, I don't know. That's kind of interesting too.
I also went back because I was curious, and there's only one like kind of erotic looking like panel, and it's the one where she's holding Ponosuke, and you just see a lot of her thigh and stuff. I just really, like, after, I don't know, just a relatively like not horny chapter, I was like, I had to look through it again. I was like, wait, hold on, what's wrong? What's this manga coming to? And sure enough, immediately, like, I scroll a couple pages to the next one, and they're both, like, in states of undress, because the girls' locker room, and I'm like, yep, okay, we're back to normal. Back to normal.
Here's also the interaction between Lou and Matsuri about the Shounen manga.
Yes.
I've got no problem with sex or violence, as long as it's a good read. What's gender got to do with it?
Let's go, queen! And then you also have, like, guys leering over her in the gym, in their exercise, and sort of having Matsuri respond to that, and what he should do about it, and the friends step in, and they're like, hey, stop, fuck off. And yeah, there's the moment you were bringing up earlier about how that desire for them to be able to see the world of Ayakashi as well, and sure enough, they start getting fucking spooky ass shit happening like immediately after, with the ghost photos and the econ malicious spirits.
Oh, but also like when they're like out running around, and like Matsuri catches the guys like looking at his boobs, I just feel like that's a really, like, the fact that he's like, do they think we can't tell? Guys are so stupid. Wait, I'm a guy too. Like, just little moments like that, I feel like are
indicative, of just his change. Because, like, I've thought about it just, like, in the sense of, like,
because it's kind of like the way that Matsuri, like, it's kind of like inverse transitioning, where it's like typically the person like feels kind of a disconnect with their body and then makes the physical change after. But this is like the physical change happens first, and then
yeah, he has to adapt to it, right? Well, because I don't know, I was just thinking about it like sort of psychologically in the sense of like, we're sort of like, because we're influenced to certain like concepts and ideas like from birth, basically there's a lot of like conditioning in a sense that happens. Like the example I always think about is how like I've been raised as an atheist basically because my dad sort of lost a lot of his faith in religion when my twin brother died like a month after we were born, and but I've also noticed that him and my brother still have lots of Christian values, right? And because it's like, and like even though they're not practicing Christians, because of like the foundational importance Christianity has in Western culture, like I've just noticed like ways in which these values have affected just daily life, right? So and then same with like laws and systems and like these sort of influence behaviors. So in a sense, like Matsuri, by just being a girl, being treated and looked at like as a girl and having to present himself as a girl, like you can see that affecting his mindset already, where like he initially says like treats these guys as like another, but he's the guy, right, as well, or he is also a guy. So he like you see that changing. I guess it's one of the earlier instances of him sort of starting to accept his femininity in a sense because knowing how the manga goes later. So just I hadn't picked up on that little detail. Sorry, I just laughed because I was going. They're at the bathhouse in the next chapter, and well, because one, I'm reading the volume releases, so you do have just like the nipples being drawn. Where in the week going back after I ran out of volumes and was going back to the weekly chapters, they're being censored out. But the fucking way the spirits are very like conveniently hiding the, it's just so arrow manga, and it's just it's just like, yep, all right, that's fair. So I mean expected really, but well, I guess another thought I thought was interesting because Lucy, her body type is more like lowly, and I remember there was one chapter that wasn't on the official Viz website because it was, I guess,
I think it was Rochka.
Oh, it was Rochka instead. Okay, because I was just paying attention to that because I just noted like there was one chapter specifically that wasn't officially released online in English, and there had to be scans for it, I think. Because it was a little too much for the decency policy of the website, or there was a personal thing with the staff behind it who was like, yeah, this chapter is a little too far. I don't even remember what chapter it was. I don't even know if I have it downloaded. So I think it's. I
don't think it was in this reading.
No, I don't think it was. Let me check because I have chapter. Yeah, it says 88 extra, but I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I guess I'm looking at I should have all the chapters. So but yeah, I don't know. I'll look it up to make sure I don't miss it because I could easily have not had it downloaded on accident. So anyway, I'm
gonna see if I can look it up on the Viz thing. Chapter 74 and 75.
Okay, good to know. Because I seem to have those downloaded, but I'll make sure that yes, I have them downloaded. So okay. Oh yep. No, see, I'm looking in the volume, or they're manga decks, where the other ones around it are Viz. So yes, those chapters. So I have them, but those chapters were not done by Viz. So anyway,
definitely. Like if I were to name some gripes with the manga, just like as part, it's again like it's all part of like the tropes and stuff. Like the two things that really bother me at points are like the younger characters like Rochka being sexualized because like on the one hand that's just how the manga goes, but that doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I got it.
And like be comfortable with it. The other thing is that there are some scenes of just straight up sexual assault, which, you could play off as like, oh, that's just anime trope, but it's still like, ugh. Like I hate Matsuri's mom's introduction.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's fair.
And it's like, I get why it's structured that way, but yeah,
that's I understand. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like perfect characters, where it's like, I absolutely understand people not caring for it, right? So of course. But anyway, we go into the dream sequence where male Matsuri saves Lou, and ruins her forever because now she's in love with an alien, as we come to discover. Very silly. Also, the photo of Matsuri with the on the phone with the happy Matsuri with the is cute. It's cute. Moving on. I gotta move through these chapters a little quicker because it's like we're gonna be here for a hot minute. But anyway, Garaku, a very important character. There was one character who I'll bring up who I kind of forgot about, but this was not one of them because he's pretty important going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's also interesting because he's an Ayakashi who's sort of assimilated with human society in that like he's interacted with interacts with humans. He's known among them, which kind of comes up later in a cool way.
Ninakuru is in love with Suzu, but he can't tell her. And it sets up the recurring gag of like he's like, just say it, from now on I'll stand alongside Kazumaki to protect you. And it comes out as, I'll protect Kazumaki. And she's like, did he just declare himself like as my love rival?
Rip fucking bozo. But yeah, Garaku wants to fuck with Matsuri and Suzu a little bit. So he's, hey, I'm gonna take that scroll, hand it over to me. Of course he fucking summons tentacles. God damn it. Yeah. Just another one of those, just like, that's the formula. That's the, yeah.
One thing I also kind of liked about the art is that like, Garaku's got the glasses, so he's always kind of like, he's got the mysterious, like, glasses character vibes where they're whited out. But then, like, the first time you see his eye is when it's like, oh, he's an Ayakashi, he's not a human. And I think that's like a little art detail that I like.
That's true. Yeah, we only see him for real when we understand his nature. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't picked up on that. Shit, now I want to think, because like I'm looking at when he's asking to hand over the God Sealing Scroll, he has one of his eyes is showing, but the other isn't. So because he's hiding something, he doesn't really care, right? Like we know what he really cares about May. Right, like shit. Like so, he's hiding something, so that's sort of shown visually as one of his eyes is showing and the other isn't. So.
Oh yeah. No, I guess you don't ever see both eyes in the fight.
Yeah. So, fuck, that's good. So I guess like you bring up character design. What would that character details? I guess so. It's just it's really cool. I'll have to keep my eye on it later when he does sort of reveal his true face, so to speak. But yeah, his powers are pretty versatile and neat. And they're able to. He's weak to water, so they're able to take care of that with some smartness.
Ninakuru lives up to his promise and protects Kazumaki.
That Suzu's face was good. Wait, he just meant what he said. Mind blown. Did you have any more to say about the Garaku stuff? In that fight?
I mean, I think I just, in general, like the power progression in this series. I feel like one of the threads early on that I really like is Matsuri being overprotective of Suzu. And, I feel like there's definitely some poking at gender roles there, that it's like Matsuri is always the one who feels like, oh, Suzu, you have to stay out of this. You can't know about this. You can't fight this. But it's like, no, Suzu needs to know what's going on because, like, sometimes she needs to step in to protect Matsuri. And so this is kind of one of those examples where, like, if Garaku was fighting for real, Matsuri mentions that, like, I would have died first. So, like, I just feel like it's cool.
And also, because I think Garaku helps Suzu get stronger, right? Am I misremembering?
Yeah.
Which makes sense because he's also the one who cares the most about Suzu's Ayakashi side, basically.
Like Garaku sets up some conflicts in later chapters, which is intentionally trying to progress Suzu's abilities through like her relationship with Matsuri.
Also, because looking at the next chapter, because we do see because I forget what the garb. It's more traditional garb. Where we see Rita, Suzu's brother, Matsuri talking to him, and I just like that outfit, just a casual sort of traditional vibe, and I like it better on female Matsuri than male Matsuri for some reason. So I don't know, it's just I like it though. And I mean that's one of the cool things about like I don't know, it's a weird. Because I think the one series I got like jokingly mad about it was Holic, the Clamp manga, because like the main character Watanuki will generally wear his like Gakuran school uniform, where Yuko, the female lead, gets all these crazy, cool, insane outfits with Clamp. They're fucking great artists, right? And I just felt the gender disparity there, where it's like guys aren't allowed to be cool and fashionable necessarily, right? Like obviously there's exceptions. Like I think it's real. Bleach is really funny to think about because like they do have really cool fashion in the color pages and the title pages, but not in the actual manga. They generally stick to like a couple of outfits, right? So it's like, but at least but here in Ayakashi Triangle, it's like Matsuri's got like 2 outfits we see him in as a guy, and as a girl, it's like it's obviously most of the manga, but because girls can just have more outfits, and it's I don't know, something about that. I don't know, it's weird, just a weird thing. That I picked up on for some reason.
I like the way that Suzu's like her mom and her brother are like, oh, that was a girl? Like, oh, I remember Matsuri as a kid, and it's like they don't know.
Yep.
Also, just the recurring gag of like Rita constantly stumbling in on them doing like like whether it's horny or just it appears that way. So he's convinced like, oh, they're together and I need to protect their relationship.
Yep. And of course just he's very much like puberty or on his way there, like and just so like as I remember later on there's like I remember being just kind of like, oh Jesus, just surprised of when he had basically a wet dream sort of where it's just a very sexual with and it's like, oh yeah, okay. I just remember that surprising me, but we'll talk. I'll reread it later because that was a relatively recent chapter, but it's still been a while. So
and this is also another scene where like they're in Suzu's room and Matsuri kind of at several points throughout the story, making note of like, oh, if I hadn't become a girl, I wouldn't be able to get close to Suzu like this. Like both in the sense of like, I guess like societal expectations that like, oh, a boy and a girl can't be alone in a room together. Who knows what could happen? And then also like, in terms of like making friends and like actually kind of taking part in the human world and not just being sort of a bystander.
Yeah. And of course Garaku steals Shirogane so they're alone. And like I guess being a wingman or something. But which I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, Rita, like he didn't. It's not like because she tries to use her power to undo the seal, which is theoretically possible, but obviously Shirogane is just so strong it's not really feasible at this point. And then her brother walks in and is like, oh fuck. So whoops.
But yeah, it is cool how like once Suzu figures out that she has powers, she kind of immediately is able to start like applying them. She there's the thing obviously in the fight with Garaku, but then she just like she has the cat pillow and animates that for a little bit, and then like she's not able to undo the jutsu, but she does like damage Matsuri's like ninja gear.
I did forget about that. Because
and the way that Matsuri is kind of consistently like, when Suzu's trying to animate the cat pillow and Matsuri's like, oh, that wasn't your power. Garaku probably just messed up. Like he's continuing to undercut her abilities because like he feels like he needs to be the one protecting her. And, it comes up later that like once she does start to get power, like he feels useless. And,
yeah, well, cool. And I guess it like once she is able to know things because Matsuri was sort of keeping her in the dark, like she is able to sort of grow and improve on her own, right? Because she's not being, protected and smothered completely anymore. So, but anyway, going to the next chapter, Matsuri gets in a because Suzu fucked with his shit. He ends up in a state of undress. And I just wanted to remark on the art real quick because like the design already has like a bunch of details. And now there's an added level of detail with the damage basically. And I was just kind of comparing because obviously we see them from like the front and the back, but just like the consistency of which like the details are similar across the two, and just like and there's so many details like the scroll in the back, which doesn't matter for this fight, but it's just that's where Matsuru's keeping it right now. So I just wanted to appreciate the art there, because I was just gonna comment like, oh yep, there's a typical ecchi scenario where it's like the clothes happen and they're partly destroyed, but like because there's just so many weird details to the art, and like
like all the wisps of Ayakashi energy and like the fishnet and the fabric and like the bodily anatomy. So it's like the fact that this is a weekly manga, he's good at the art.
Absolutely, but Suzu's practicing with her paper art origami powers, and as they're out hanging out, we get introduced to Reo, who is she's a fucking pervert with her fucking smell fetish. Is always just like, God, girl, you have no restraint whatsoever. Which
I feel like she is possibly like maybe even more than Suzu, like the most upfront and doesn't hide anything.
No, she's
like she's even the first one to be like, well, if Matsuri doesn't want to go back to being a guy, like I swing both ways.
Yeah, right. And she's something. Well, I for some reason I made a connection where it's like, because this thing with scientist characters is like they want to test the limits of science and go even further beyond necessary. So she doesn't have limits as a person either, right? So I just felt like that's kind of fitting for a character who does in science and tinkering and stuff, where it's like no restraints, just go further and faster and even start. And of course she's just like misunderstandings, because the chapter ends where it's like, I would expect no less from the person who was my first, and Susan's like, fucking excuse me. But then we found out what she meant.
I hadn't thought about it from that level of characterization, like tying in the inventor, like wanting to test science and stuff. That's
of course she'd be experimental in a swinging both ways kind of sense, right? Like, god damn it, why did I think that? Fuck. And now I can't unthink it, and now I can't unsay it. So also I noticed, because the barrel robot comes in, and I remember seeing it in a flashback earlier. So just another instance of foreshadowing, because we saw younger Matsuri training with that same kind of robot, and it's like, oh, well, that was made by, if not Reo, her family, right? So, or whoever else she works with the Ayakashi tools. So, no, we do see her like a fucking dwarf-ass looking motherfucker, blacksmith guy who just, also makes the ninja tools. So, and fucking Suzu, of course, she's thinking about the line about the Reo being the first, and she has a fucking lewd fantasy, and it's like, god damn it, Suzu, you have no fucking restraint, do you? And then, of course, we find out what she actually meant as first, because, she recognized, or he recognized her as an artisan.
I guess, like, in this flashback, it's also kind of interesting with her, like, personality, that, like, testing the limits of things, that, like, there's a line where her dad is like, or is it grandfather? No, it's daughter. So, like, her dad has a line about, like, she's the most talented member of our clan, but if she keeps doing whatever, like, if she just keeps doing whatever she wants, like, she's just going to be an apprentice for a while. And it's like, well, her kind of breaking the mold, I guess, and just kind of doing whatever she thinks of it, like, she's rewarded for it with Matsuri, taking her on as, like, using her gear and weapons and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And of course it goes the ecchi route with the fucking the tickle machine powers, and because Shirogane is a little fuck. But of course, like, Ray also has just a good philosophy of just, like, she's making new things and going forward, so it's fine for something to break, because, that's, rebuilding stuff is part of the process as well. Which I guess you could argue that's also part of, like, especially Matsuri's thing right now, because, like, he's changed physically so much, like, there's a level of, like, breaking down and rebuilding, so to speak.
Yeah.
Especially I was thinking about it where it's like, with later on with the underwear stuff, he has to learn how to better be leaning into his femininity literally makes him stronger, right?
Yeah.
So
God tier plot development.
Well, and I guess like I was gonna bring this up later, but I'll since I brought it up now, it's just like that's one of the areas where I feel like because when we talk about Ranma, it feels much more like the action is in service of the romance and comedy elements.
Yeah.
But that's an example where the ecchi comedy element is in service of the action, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the instances where I feel like Ayakashi Triangle is more fit for the Nen Show where Ranma isn't.
Yeah.
Not just structure. Like I will say a part of it is just structurally. Ranma is a pain in the ass to talk about on the Nen Show. So I just don't want to do that except in like we could do it in like a book club kind of way, like, or it's just a more general, broad, open discussion, but not in like the normal like literal chapter by chapter like we do normally. So yeah, just wanted to specify that more since I don't know why I'm so gung-ho about Ranma not being Nen Show applicable, but it really doesn't feel like a Nen Show series to me.
It's like Ranma's more episodic and not quite as serialized. Even if there is kind of like a level of an overarching story, it's not to the same extent as like most of the stuff we cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Like even Gintama being episodic, like there is an overall narrative being told over the course of all of those gag chapters.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the ecchi stuff, like, I think part of why I like Ayakashi Triangle is that I think the ecchis, like it being such a like, these doing all these perverted things, like it just very bluntly tackles a lot of like quote unquote taboo topics, and I think like the nature of the sexuality being so foregrounded, I think allows it to kind of challenge those gender roles and behaviors and things like that.
Well, what you just reminded me of is how, again, this is just kind of a secondhand thing. I forget where I've seen this mentioned, but generally, like obviously when it comes to guys like being sexual and having sexual interests, it's considered childish, right? Like it's something to grow out of, which is why like characters like pervert characters are seen as more infantile in that sense. But with girls, they're kind of socially expected not to be perverted at all, basically. Like it's generally considered like unladylike or so the fact that Suzu is so just fucking horny and Matsuri isn't there's a kind of like cultural inversion they have there where the expectation would be the reverse, where Matsuri is the perverted one and Suzu is the chaste one, but nope, that's completely opposite here. So
yeah, I think that's the thing I like about Ranma and Matsuri is like these gender swap characters is that like neither of them are very like like Ranma he's not a pervert character, like he doesn't take advantage of his ability to do that stuff. Like that's just not really how his sexuality works,
right? Like even when he does
Matsuri,
I was saying, like even when he does like go into the girls' bath, it's like he doesn't give a shit. Like it's Akane who gives a shit because she knows he's a guy, but like he's like whatever, a naked body of a girl, whatever. He doesn't care.
And usually it's like a misunderstanding that if he does get caught there,
right? Exactly,
and that's where the embarrassment and the perverse part of it comes in,
right? Because yeah, for sure.
But like Matsuri is so like chivalrous and just like traditional that anytime he actively tries to avoid being put in those situations, like when they go to Lou's place and the girls are so adamant trying to like drag him into the bath, but he is doing everything he can to not not take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, and they always she changes so quickly in the changing room, right? Because he's boom in that ninja, because he just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to.
So it's like this manga definitely has the potential to like, there is kind of like a stereotype of like the predatory trans person that like, it's like I just want to go to the bathroom, but people will assume that like I have ulterior motives. So like. The fact that like this manga doesn't portray like it does the pervy stuff, but it's like between like Suzu's sexuality being tied to her powers and part of how she gains strength. So like
Matsuri,
Oh well, sorry, I was talking about Suzu there,
Oh,
but like with
okay.
Matsuri as well.
Never
Like
mind.
you mentioned the underwear stuff.
No, I just
Like,
don't remember Suzu's powers being tied to her sexuality. I just off the top of my head.
it might not have come up in this reading,
Oh,
but
okay,
like,
gotcha.
I
That's
mean,
where, yeah. Okay.
Garaku does mention that like, her connection to Matsuri is part of where she gains strength,
Mhm.
and it comes up later that like, she gets like. There's even a scene where like she's lusting after Matsuri because they're under like the meditating waterfall, and like she has like a power up, like she gains strength in part because of
Yes.
her sexuality as a motivation.
Okay.
And like, you mentioned Matsuri kind of embracing more feminine aspects, gaining power that way, like through the underwear and whatnot. So it's like, I feel like it's all done very tastefully, and I don't know, maybe that's just why I like it, because I feel like it, with a manga this perverted, like it absolutely could have portrayed this in a way that I felt was like not what I'm looking for, but I feel like it's respectful in that way.
Yeah, well, because I mean, I've even just been thinking about it lately of just like, probably because with One Piece, there's people who like don't like the goofiness. Like, there's people who just don't like Gear 5 at all, right? And that's fine, but I think it's like because like obviously there's gonna be things you dislike even in your favorite things ever, right? Or don't care for. But I guess just a personal feeling I have, it's like if it's like one of your favorite things ever, and there's something just like core fundamental that you just don't like about it. Like you've already mentioned some issues that I've had with the Ayakashi Triangle, but they aren't like fundamental issues. In fact, like you just talked about a fundamental strength in your eyes, where it's like, it is perverted, but it's not doing it in this way that you don't tend to like, right? So I was just thinking about how like if you don't like with Gintama, I like Gintama, but like I just fundamentally don't vibe with the comedy in the manga. So I fundamentally like I would even if the stuff I liked was like on par with my favorite manga ever, I still would never call it a favorite of mine just because I don't like such a fundamental core aspect of the series. So it was just something I was thinking of regarding personal taste, because like it would just be strange to me if someone said something like what like this is their favorite thing ever, but also they just really hate this fundamental core part of the series. And I'm like, is it like okay, maybe it's your favorite thing ever, but there's probably something else out there that you like more that you just haven't found yet. So but I don't know, it's just the thought I've been having. So
I think like another way to try and phrase the point I was going for a bit ago was like, because some people do approach like, in the same way that some people like, I can only speak from my experiences growing up in like America, where like Christian values are a big thing. And so there are people who are very against like open displays of sexuality, and like, oh, you have to get married and, go about it the right way and things like that. So like, because this manga explores stuff like that just openly, some people do approach queer subjects from that same lens of like, oh, it must be sexual. You're gay because, it's not considering like the romantic aspects of it, or just the way of presenting oneself. So because like Ayakashi Triangle takes like that sexuality and portrays that, like, even if characters are objectified, like it's still ultimately, I think, a series that kind of champions the perverseness almost, that like the characters like Suzu or Matsuri kind of embracing these parts of themselves, like with Matsuri's femininity and Suzu's horniness, that like they gain power through that. And so I think that's why the like queer reading of this works so well, and it doesn't feel like it has any potential, like, I don't know, I don't have many misgivings about it, I guess.
No, I gotcha. But yeah, the chapter ends off with or not almost ends off, but there's just the fucking Rayo's outfit for Suzu, like the fucking just like Jesus Christ, every time this is the page turn, I'm just like, I never see it coming. Cause
maybe if you have something cute and Rayo's like, this is her idea of cute.
Just sometimes like the erotic jokes get to me, and they like there's one later that's just so like I don't know. It just I didn't see it coming at all, even though I'd read the manga before, and it just happens. And it's like I thought it was really funny.
Well, like Reo mentioning, like an Ayakashi would go down so easily with this seduction trap, and Matsuri's like, "Why would you seduce an Ayakashi?"
Oh, I love when character because like Matsuri's like covering his eyes, but not really. I love that joke every time when a character because it's like they don't want to see, but also they can't resist. So it's just like I love it when characters do that because it's like they're pretending to hide their eyes, but they're unable to. So it's always good.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I'm also just remembering on the point that I was making earlier, like the scenes of Matsuri and Suzu like in like alone together, like especially in Suzu's room, like, you know, it openly like flirts with the idea that like Matsuri could take advantage of the situation and like they could do a bunch of horny stuff, but Matsuri doesn't do that.
He's too chaste and Suzu's too rude. Yeah, I assume you're speaking on the extra chapter with where it's hot on a hot day. Is that what you're thinking of? Or like,
I was thinking of one later in the reading.
Okay. Well, I
like,
gotcha.
It is, but
well, I was just
yeah.
I was on this one. And I just thought, well, because just the way it ends with like Matsuri literally like, Suzu's way too lewd. So he's like, he's like turning into a cooling fan, like becoming a ninja tool, you know, which is like that, but also it's like he's literally cooling down the situation because he's making it less lewd because it's like like he's, you know, because like it zooms in on her armpits and her side boob because she's just like. Suzu is naturally lewd, whether she knows it or she's trying or not. Because in this case, I don't think she's trying, but it's like, you know, Matsuri, like you get the little dizzy eye thing, and he's just like, oh god, I need to. So it's, and yeah, Shiragani's like, wait, he's a household appliance now through his jutsu, and it's just, I don't know, it's just a funny interaction. And so yeah, this is the character I forgot, Solsuke, the Jinyo. Who he shows up again later, and I was like, I don't remember this character at all. He's probably like evil or something, and he turned out to be evil or something, and I was like, aha. But then no, he becomes a recurring character who I just for some reason just completely forgot about. So, but yeah, no, this was good stuff that I forgot about. So yeah, go ahead.
I did not finish the anime just yet, but I believe this is around where it leaves off. Like I think it does the Hinojiki conflict, and I think that's probably where season 1 ends.
That makes sense for a spot to end it off, I would say.
Because I feel like it's Ayakashi Triangle's first, like, really serious arc.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, the characters' lives are in jeopardy, and, like, the antagonist isn't, like, you know, Hinojiki isn't sexualized at all. Like, he's just portrayed as vicious and intimidating and kind of fucked up.
He is introduced as like he's an attractive boy, right? But it's still not like, again, not very sexual. He's just handsome. That's it. But yeah, he immediately asks Suzu for help with healing up an Ayakashi, who he then eats, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ. Because as it turns out, he likes you know, not just feeding on Ayakashi, but also like drinking in their negative feelings of like fear and betrayal or having been betrayed.
Yeah, like I really like the way that the Ayakashi like the way that they gain power through like being deified and worshipped and or feared. You know, it kind of feels like reminiscent to things like Chainsaw Man or like the way that just the use of like, you know, a character's spirit being their source of power, and so like taking that to a more like, you know, these mythical like creatures gaining power through or losing power through like the amount of people who know about them.
Yes, no, especially like the way that happens with the Garaku versus like the Rust guy fight, where he's like, yeah, he's modernized himself, where the Rust guy's been buried for so long everyone forgot about him. So it's cool how it comes up in the mechanics as well. Yeah, I like it.
It's like a good blend of tradition and modernity, I think.
Yes.
Also, there's like another one of those interactions with Ninakuru and Matsuri beforehand. And like, I guess the other side of the coin with Matsuri's gender, and also part of why I really connect with it, is that like, you know, just as much as Matsuri wouldn't have gotten to be friends with Yayo and Lu in the same way if he never became a girl, if he never was a guy, he wouldn't be able to talk to like Ninakuru in the same way.
Oh yeah,
like there wouldn't be that same level of familiarity.
Well, also
with the way
just because the way he's awkward around girls, like the fact that Matsuri was a guy, it's like it's sort of able to be a pipeline, like which also like connects him to Suzu, and like right, like he's able to work towards overcoming his awkwardness around women because he's talking with a woman who used to be a guy, basically. So yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah, I really like the value of both perspectives with Matsuri, where it's like, like it's got like queerness can be different for like different people. Like for some people, like some trans women would say that they never really felt like men, that they always just kind of felt like, they should be a woman. But it's like in like my case where it's like, there is like the socialization aspect of gender and like the way you present yourself. So like, I think there are like, I wouldn't say that like, I should have been born the other way, because like, I feel like the experiences that I did have before I transitioned, I feel like just as much shaped the person that I am now as like the like my experiences after or like while transitioning, and like I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I'm pretty sure I understand, because it is a part of who you are, right? Like your time living as a man and your time living as a woman are both you, right? Is that what you were trying to say? So yeah, I think I get it.
Yeah, and so like with how Matsuri's character kind of progresses, it's like he doesn't really have to reject either. It's more like his existence is like a synthesis of his time as a guy and time as a girl, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm sure that I'll feel that more strongly, like rereading the next part, where like that becomes more of a thing with Matsuri, I would say, because right now, it's very much like, obviously, he has both those experiences, but relatively speaking, he's been a girl for much less longer, and we're seeing some instances where he is like becoming more girl brained in a sense, but it's still it's a process. So yeah.
Yeah, I might be getting a little ahead of myself in this discussion. I gotta save some stuff for next time.
It's fine. But anyway, Sosuke is keeping Suzu because he wants to eat her at peak emotional distress, such as after killing Matsuri. So you got the rival boys heading out to go save her. I like how Yusoga's like, I've got a jutsu I want to test out. You go ahead. So he's like being the cool rival boy, but also he's letting Matsuri go to save the person he cares about the most, right? Like, so it's just, and also doing the shonen thing of like, you go ahead, I'll hold them back, like just yeah. But yeah, then we get the fight between Matsuri and Sosuke, where he's revealing his powers and being able to eat spiritual energy. Which fucks
I also
Matsuri
like
up.
the setting of the fight, where I mean, it's kind of less for the manga itself and more just how it ties into a broader cultural perspective, that like, these are the ruins of a popular resort hotel that collapsed after the economic bubble burst. And just kind of like how I guess and it's kind of similar to how like after World War II, that perspective is like heavily featured in like Japanese media.
Yes.
That like the aftermath of that. And so like, like looking back at something like Ranma, I don't know how much the economic prosperity is present there, but like
not very from my memory, for sure.
But it is kind of like a difference in like the time and place of things.
No, yeah, for sure. I hadn't thought about that, where it's just like, because it is just something very, it is super cultural. I now I'm trying to like think of ways, can I read that into this conflict, but I can't think of anything. So,
well, I guess also like in a broader sense, how it ties in with the Ayakashi and kind of like modernization and
that's true.
The loss of tradition and things like that. And we're just coming off Shaman King as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Shirogane mentions like in part of his backstory that like, he had the shrine, and then like stuff happened, and then he came back and the town was flooded, which like that concept of like the dying rural town because everyone's moving to the cities is that also shows up in a lot of other anime and things like that.
No, that's true. Well, and especially because moving forward a bit, like Matsuru's unable to match with Sosuke because he's strong, like who is established as being equivalent to fucking Shirogane, who he was only able to like seal away, not necessarily to defeat. But he gets his scroll and he starts fighting as Shirogane as his full on Ayakashi king. And I really like what this fight does for Shirogane, where it's like, yeah, because he is, he like the way he doesn't like humans. Because he doesn't like he dislikes the pain of of connection, basically, like being abandoned, because he is this long-lived ancient being who grows attached to these transient small lives. And he being abandoned, and especially like what does he hate the most? Romance, love. Like part of it is like having lovers like at his abandoned shrine, like, oh, fucking teenagers kissing again, those little shits, right? But what does love results in, especially in his traditional mindset? Procreation, evolution, further, like a furthering of transient lives that are going to continue to forget and abandon him even if he connects to them, right? So it's just like his dislike of horny is just like the fact that it ties to his traditional values and his dislike of humans for like and coming the painting experiences for these lives not lasting as long as it's just so like chef's kiss. It's just all clicks together in a way that's just like, it's like what I was talking about last time, where I like things that are smart but also dumb, and it's like, yeah, that's what this manga is. It's just like silly ecchi bullshit that's also really thoughtful and interesting. So it's like, fuck, god, it's a good series. So yeah. And yeah, we got Suzu, after Shirogane gets beaten up a bit, Suzu starts using her origami to enter the fight as well. So they're all working together. And then there's the Sosuke ate all the Haku, so the seal was able to become temporarily undone. So you got Gai Matsuri. Basically, I had a one-up because I was a girl. How dare you compare my secret arts to video games? Now because basically Matsuru's been able to sort of befriend Ayakashi again, be more accepting of Suzu's nature, and instead of just seeing all Ayakashi as enemies, because he's now able to, he's achieved a better inner harmony, and he's able to get a power. And yeah, like you said, this is just straight up like, there's not, because he's a guy, there's no ecchi anymore. He's just like, it's just an action series at this point. Which is like, yeah, and there you go. And he's able to, get his power up and fulfill his promise. And also the way it ends with Sosuke, where he wants to at least drink in his like affirmation of negativity, and see Suzu laughing at him, right? But instead he's getting a negative emotion, but it's not the way in the context he desired, so it just ruins him basically. And, as we come to see later, where it's like he's lost his appetite because now he's starting to see the beings he would devour as people basically instead of foods. So good stuff.
I really like this conflict. And like the stuff with Suzu, it's definitely a conflict I appreciated a lot more on the reread. Just seeing like where all the pieces are moving and things like that. Just like Suzu's compassion kind of coming through above all else. And, that's where like her strength as the Ayakashi medium lie, because like she doesn't reject humanity and she doesn't reject Ayakashi, which is kind of like, when Mei gets introduced later, it's like, I don't know, things like that. I'm getting ahead of myself again.
Yeah, and it also works out where it's like, because it's like there were some big changes in the fight where you have Shirogane having his seal undone, and then Matsuri becomes a guy again. But there's also very much of like a return to status quo, where it's like, oh, Shirogane was weakened from the fight, so he's just going to be stuck in his small, cute form for a good while, right?
But it's also kind of like after this point, he's not really an antagonist anymore.
Exactly right. So there's no threat anymore of him like needing to be sealed away in the first place. So it's like, so it's just, I don't know, it's like moving forward but also keeping things back in like an elegant way, which I think it's normal. It's fine, like there being a status quo. Like I'm not speaking negatively against the series. It's just I don't know, I think it's well handled. And because like you still get like, even just like, because like Shirogane as a character is advancing even if he's still stuck as a little cat, right? And he's not like a regular, because he's still really strong as an ally, so it's like it makes sense why they'd want to keep him under collar narratively, so to speak, so it doesn't just solve all the conflicts for them.
Yeah.
And this was what I was thinking of earlier, where because Matsuri starts to strip because he wants to do waterfall training, and Suzu's like, oh fuck, here we go, and she takes off her coat, and it's like she's thinking they're gonna have fucking sex, and it's like in the fucking wilderness, like animals, like, what the fuck are you thinking, woman? And it's like, no, he's just but also I thought it was just like, you know, her seeing him as a guy naked, and it just, there's a little, because like obviously they're having levels of feelings awakened towards each other more strongly, not that Suzu didn't have them before, right? But like, I don't know, it's just you know, there's still advancement in that front as well, basically. Like especially Matsuri, he's seeing Suzu as a girl now instead of just as something to someone to protect, right? So yeah, it's like even though there's still the status quo, there's still growth and advancement on the party sides of all the parties involved, and it's good. And yeah, you get Suzu's declaration that she wants to get stronger, so, you know, they say Matsuri and Shirogane saved her, so she wants to get stronger to save them, and, you know, make it more a mutual protection instead of just her being protected. So yeah.
And one thing I also really like about Ayakashi Triangle is that, like, the romance progresses.
Yep. Sorry, I laughed because of the fucking stupid.
She trips.
Yeah, I just forgot about that, and just God damn it, Suzu.
Oh, but it's about the symbolism of, like, they're seeing each other, and so Suzu seeing both forms of Matsuri is I don't know.
It's just the little extra page where she's got like, it was amazing, and Shuriken is just, he's unhappy, he's sick of this shit, he's so done, he's an ecchi manga character who hates ecchi manga, like he prefers wholesome manga like me and Roboco, as we come to find out. I'm so glad I get to talk about Roboco later, but anyway.
Yeah, I think kind of also an interesting part about the progression in Ayakashi Triangle is that I feel like in this earlier section, like, Suzu, she's still lewd, don't get me wrong, but she's not as, like, aggressive about it as she becomes later.
That's true, which is...
So it's kind of interesting seeing the characters, like, come into their own, I guess.
No, yeah, which is, like, especially, like, if you're reading a manga weekly, you become used to how certain things are, right? So it's you know, I think art-wise is probably one of the most common, especially with, like, newer artists, right? But, like, in this case, I think Yabuki's found his style by now, like, through drawing, like, because I'm sure if we go back to Black Cat, it's going to be like, who the fuck drew this, right? Where I think if we, you know, compare it, you know, it's probably closer to To Love Ru, especially To Love Ru Darkness, because I feel like even just from Volume 1 to Volume 16, there's basically no meaningful style change, I don't think, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So, you know, but as character-wise, yeah, like, obviously, like, yes, because, yeah, Suzu is very forward later on in the manga, like, and even now she's, not that she's, like, she's certainly not the chast one in the relationship, even now, but it's just interesting to think about. Okay, we're almost done with Volume 3. Oh, fuck.
Not even halfway there.
Not even close. But yeah, things have leveled out. Sosuke is gone, basically. Suzu is crowned king, and there's a little conflict with the Tanumaru, the Tanuki pot, who's was there early on, even in chapter 1. I remember checking after as we were scrolling through again. And I like how the conflict works out, where, like, Suzu talks about wanting to be the bridge between Ayakashi and humans, and so she proves that it's possible by you know, she helps Tanumaru and Matsuri reconnect after having, you know, their difficulties before. So, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, Matsuri owning up to his past mistakes of, like, pushing all the Ayakashi away from Suzu.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to undo the jutsu.
And yeah, Suzu finding her own strength and helping Matsuri to break the break through it, because it's like he was strong enough to, because obviously Tanumaru is, like, not a strong Ayakashi, so but Matsuri took on the jutsu because he was, like, you know, sort of guilt, basically, and so yeah, just it's a good little conflict.
What kind of illusions did you see in there? I can't even say. That bad?
Next chapter, Matsuri is like, Soga, let's talk after class. And he's like, don't just fucking talk to me out of nowhere. Like, people's like, he has a girlfriend? Like, just, just him being, like, unaware as a guy is good. Also, I like the, because they're talking about the grades and stuff, and it's like, smart, normal, unfortunate.
Yeah.
Just for Suzu and Lou, they're dummies.
Yeah, and like Yayo being kind of seeming like kind of an airhead, but she's actually the smart one. Like Yayo doesn't really become, I think, a super interesting character until like later on when she gets some stuff. But
yeah, Lou is just a goofball. It makes sense that she's bad at school.
Here's the scene where Matsuri tells Soga that he's in love with Suzu, and Soga's like, you're the one who's more suited to be with her, and it's got like the dramatic like light rays,
a sweat drop that might look like a tear. He's such a fucking what's the word I'm looking for? Drama queen.
Yeah. But he's also so cool about it. And then, Matsuri's kind of freaking out. Like, I don't know if she feels that way about me. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's obvious.
She's gonna jump your bones, like, every time you, like, fucking look the other way. Like, shit, dude. He's so brainless when it comes to love. And then the page after that where you get Soga's eyes lighting up a little bit. And it's, like, totally brainless. And Matsuri's just got a dumb expression on his face. And it's like,
don't make that face. You're a guy.
Now he's starting to see Matsuri as a woman, like the rival to lover pipeline.
And then he gives the speech, like, if you're not confident, work on improving yourself. Your physical body doesn't matter. Aim to be the one who's most suitable for Suzu.
He's so cool.
Yeah, I love him.
Yep, and there it is, because just the Azuki beans fall and they both trip. And Soga's like, an extra ninja will not fall for this obvious gag. Suzu discovers that they did in fact fall for this obvious gag, quite literally.
And then her Omokage just explodes.
The fact that she's speaking in PlayStation buttons is funny. I didn't notice until just now that yes, those are all for the PlayStation buttons. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Then we get Ninokura Muga, Soga's dad.
Even edgier, man.
And you get gotta love the obviously the one I really really think of is fucking Hunter x Hunter with the ball game they play on the airship with Netero, where it's like fighting a character they're overwhelmed against in a more simple contest, and they're using teamwork. They find a cool team move. Where they're sort of Matsuri's using his wind control to make it so Soga can move faster with his lightning speed, and they're able to spill the sake, and it's cool.
And then he immediately switches gears and like, actually, you should become a couple. You're great for each other.
This is like, the fuck did you just say? Am I gonna have to slap a bitch?
Yeah, and it's like, but Matsuri's a guy, and it's like, it's okay, as long as the jutsu holds, he's a girl. No problem. And then Suzu stepping up to fight him, and the other two are just impressed.
Yes, it's good. Anyway, next chapter, Lou is UFO crazed as usual. I don't know, just the panel of her, like, just standing in the field with her arms up she's cute. Okay, so, fucking Shirogane. I like how, it's funny to me that Shirogane, like, disapproves of shameless behavior.
Yeah.
But he himself is not without being shameless. So he, like, literally turns into Guy Matsuri and is like, Suzu, can I get some of your dongo? And she's too
yeah,
she's just lewd, and it's just
even knowing it's a disguise, she's still not immune.
Yes, and she gives him the dango and also causes a misunderstanding with Lou where it's him, the one from my dream. He's an alien who speaks Japanese. And
Shiromatsu.
yes. And then just the fucking like shit going on with there was an actual UFO Ayakashi dicking around or like kind of like one
and Suzu putting catnip in
that's...
the dongo, so it's like he gets drunk off it.
Oh no, and he sees Lou as dongo and almost jumps her, but is stopped. And she sees the Ayakashi, like just the way the layered like silly shit happens. I love it's fun. Where she sees the Ayakashi going away, and it's like, oh, there he goes, there Shiro Matsuri, Matsushi. Fucking Reo. Gotta just scrolling through because now we get a Reo chapter, and she's gonna try and help Matsuri become a boy again, but also she has her fucking smell fetish and her incense, and it's just openly horny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is just a little dumb comedy chat. Yeah, the fucking breast changing shit is. Yep, I forgot about that.
But it's like she always has the excuse of like, no, I'm not being a pervert. This is for research. When it's like, it's clearly for more than just research.
Absolutely. But anyway, that's right. This chapter, they go to the haunted house and are sort of forced to relive an old couple's time as lovers, and just where you have the younger Suzu sort of rejecting the false happiness, basically.
Oh yeah, that's where she gets introduced.
Yeah. I like how after it's all done, Suzu wakes up screaming about tiramisu, and Matsu's like, yep, she's back to normal. She's talking about sweets. Yeah, I don't know. Just some neat little chill chapters that to just wind down, it feels like, before it winds back up inevitably.
Yeah, that's another thing I like about Ayakashi Triangle. The pacing of like the rising and falling of action, and there kind of being room for the characters to just sort of hang out and breathe. And like how that is still contributing to kind of like the progression of the story, be it through like the romance or I don't know. I like its structure.
Yeah, and also I just had another thought, and I scrolled through again, and like, yeah, there's the kissing, obviously, but aside from the cover page, which has naked Matsuri playing a guitar for some reason, it's another not particularly horny chapter. So, which, you know, I like how, like, obviously it's an ecchi manga. I kind of expect it to be, you know, horny a lot of the time, and that's fine, but it is nice that it's not like, I guess, slavish to it so as to feel the need to do it literally every single time, basically. Because you will get like the end of the last arc was the end of this Matsuri Sosuke fight was just two dudes fighting in a not erotic way at all, right? So it's like, you know, so yeah, it's neat. And yeah, the next chapter is also not super horny, where it's just about you know, Shirogane and Garakura talking. And I think this is where
Shirogane tries to get Matsuri and to further complicate things by manipulating the board.
Yeah, this is where I clicked together the Shirogane specifically hating romance because of partly because of like the shrine, but also connecting it to just like, you know, the transience that he just and you know, really stuff that he doesn't like. And yeah, sort of like Matsuri quietly fighting Shirogane in the background, so Lou and Yayo don't get while they're hanging her out, they don't get distracted by that. Foreshadowing when Garaku says that Suzu has forgotten about him. Gasp.
And then Yayo and Lou push Matsuri and Soga together, and they're like, all right, date now. And they're just confused.
So yeah, the Rust guy, whose name escapes me, is unsealed. Garaku's having an exhibition. Wow. There's the Suzu connects with the painting of a tree, which I guess I didn't think about before, but implies that she has some level of prior memory, even if most of her memories are gone, because she has some sort of longing for the tree that's not there anymore. And again, it's sort of, you mentioned, we've talked about before, where just changing times and, you know, this old sacred tree is now gone, basically. So Garaku can only paint it from his memory. That's when they get attacked by Chirizuka Kaio, the Ghost King of Dust, who's one of the sort of you got kind of like a thing where because these strong Ayakashi that were sealed away, so there's almost like a kind of like the three great kings kind of element, one of those kind of Shounen titles. So yeah. Also, I haven't been paying enough attention to Suzu's like coats, but I'm noticing on this one she has like a cookie design in her pocket.
Oh yeah.
So because in chapter 1 she had the candy, and I'm like, how often has it been changing? And I just haven't noticed the different sweets. Because it's like how many jackets with sweets on, or is it just one moddable jacket? Like, I'm not sure which. She's so obsessed with sweet things. It's funny. But yeah, Matsuri goes in and has his clothes blown away first, as it be. But yeah, since Matsuri is unable to defeat the Ghost King, Garaku steps up. And yeah, I guess you have because like a Ghost King, he's all about rust and decay. So he's like even talking about how like he's basically sees the past as something that just goes away and dies, where Garaku is very much like he cares a lot about the past, right? And his past memories with Mei. So I hadn't thought about their contrast before actually, and how they have that sort of dichotomy. And I just noticed we get a rare Garaku both eyes moment where he as he's talking to the Ghost King about how his the Ghost King's been forgotten, but Garaku's been remembered through his art and his exhibitions and his the way he's adapted to the modern times, and all of that makes me stronger. And you get both of his eyes, and it's like, oh fuck,
yeah.
And he just destroys his former master, So he's moving forward, but without rejecting the past. So.
I remember, like, when I first read through the series, the action elements didn't really start to click with me until, like, Shadow Mei showed up. But I'm looking back on it now, and I'm like, no, there are a lot of, like good paneling and, like, good, just, very striking art, and the combat moments are hype.
No, you can tell Yabuki's been at it for, like, 20 plus years now? Like, he's an experienced author. And then you got the confession, I was in love with you in your previous life. It's like childhood friend, a different childhood, like previous life childhood friend. Is that even a thing? Because Matsuri is already Suzu's childhood friend, but now it's like, no. But obviously it's like it's just like a kind of temporary thing because as we find out, he's not really in love with Suzu. He's in love with Mei, of course. And then he goes into his backstory where he growing up under the Ghost King, basically, he came to not value, anything, right? Like, he was formed from a basically an object that was loved a lot by its painter. But then he came to, everything gets turned to dust, basically. And so, it doesn't matter that, like, people, and obviously he wasn't well respected or liked by any of the people around him either. But Mei was the one who gave him feelings of things that can like feelings that beyond just the physical state of things and whether they last or not. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I also really like his motivation with like he never wanted to paint Mei because like if he did, he feared she would die, but she died anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so like now his ambition is to kind of live up to that.
Yeah, no, he even told Suzu later he wants to paint a fully completed Ayakashi medium, right? So, obviously he's thinking of Mei, and Mei is, I guess, a more advanced medium than Suzu,
mm-hmm.
But that also becomes the thing. So, and yeah, there's the, at the end of the chapters, Matsuri's freaking, because Shuriken is like, what, does he have to pee or something? And he's like, no, he's freaking out about, like, the reincarnated lovers versus childhood friends. Like, well, shit, childhood friend never wins, fuck. So
and then Ninakuru, like, talks with him in a later chapter and is, like, he mentions, like, oh, prove that the childhood friends trope can trump the other one, and it's like, I didn't know you'd know a word like trope.
Yay, wait a minute, aren't you like 1 million years old? You should know modern things. But yeah, anyway. we just took a 24 plus hour hiatus there because it was too long of an episode, and I was having power issues. So after the fact, so I wasn't feeling recording. But anyway, back into the discussion. Where were we? So we just finished the Ghost King arc. And then they go shopping because Matsuri needs girl clothes.
Fashion chapter.
We get Reo being a degenerate, but we also get fashion and cool outfits, which is exactly what I was bitching about before. I almost said last time, but it's not last time. It's this time. Yeah. It was just yesterday for us. But about like the gender disparity with outfits, and it's like, well, here you have cute girl, cute outfits. Boom, we're set. We're all good. And
and then there's that line where Reo's like, I don't care if Matsuri is a boy or a girl, either works.
Yeah, no, just being the kind of forward character who challenges the other characters who are just letting things lie. Yeah. And
then just this chapter in particular is kind of funny because we got to squeeze in a little bit of action here, and so Ninakuru just flies in and takes out a little econ, and then shenanigans.
Yep, and his brain melts when he sees Matsuri in underwear, and yep, silly chapter. So I got to the next chapter, and Suzu's thinking in the bath, and she's using her omokage to bathe herself, and just the panel on the bottom of the page where she's got two she's like, this is fine, everything's fine, two kind of silly expressions. It's dumb. But anyway, Suzu wants to get stronger, so Garaku is, origami again. Something sneaky going around the school. It was Reo.
Yeah.
She's just has no filter.
She's a student now, so all the major characters are at the school.
Yep, just transfer students, that's just how it goes. We're halfway done with the reading, Mathwiz. It only took us 3 hours of recording and a day, and a whole nother day.
I definitely thought about breaking this podcast up into 3 readings purely for the fact that I figured I'd talk a lot.
No, yeah, that's fair, but I feel like it's too late now. There's nothing to be done.
No, yeah, I feel like this is ultimately the better way to go about it, but it just, it does mean the discussions are longer.
Would be really funny if this was our longest episode, if it surpassed Wano, part 4. Because Reo's in Yayo and Lou are talking about the romance, and that means Ryo's gonna swoop in on Soga, and that's gonna Matsuri, and you're not gonna be able to talk to Soga again. And Matsuri's like, what?
Matsuri having so little social awareness that he just takes it at face value when it's and then Suzu's like, why is Matsuri bothered by that? And then also when he meets up with Ninakuru, and at the end of the chapter, it's I forget who says it, but someone just it was Suzu. That's a weird definition of a rival.
And of course, Matsuri is they're using ninja arts because Soga's trying to escape, and Matsuri wants to say his fucking speak his mind, and I want us to stay friends and talk about anything, even and of course there's an ecchi moment because of course.
But it is cool because Soga also does the dance of falling leaves that his father was doing, so it's they both kind of advance in this little conflict, which is it's not really a fight, but it's still it's progressing the action.
Yeah, just for silly reasons, in that the conflict itself is just so, I mean, it's important to them, but it's still silly, but it's still, it advances things. You're right, I didn't think about that. Then we get another new character, Rochka, little snow baby.
Poor Suzu goes to eat a donut and it's frozen solid.
Rip Bozo.
Just her in the background of the panel just sulking.
sad, and just fucking around with the freezing, and just being a little chaos agent. Of course, with the goal of usurping her as king of the Ayakashi, or at least rather, for her friend. Then of course their plot to lure her out by having Matsuri hide with Ryo's cloak, and Suzu's acting natural by showing her naked body off, not naked, but mostly naked body off, and it's just you're not hiding. You're not very good at hiding what you're doing to me, Suzu.
She is not subtle at all. And then Rochka's just like, oh, they're underestimating me, and just
she's so cute.
just falls for it.
Pout. Of course, Rochka decides to attack during the bath, so hot water is available, and that's not environmentally good for her. Oh yeah, then they get dragged into the mirror world, which is fun with Ungai Kyo, the mirror Ayakashi.
This is another conflict that I liked more than I remembered on the first reading.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I like the way it sort of ends up, where it's because it's definitely like it's still a conflict, but it's still on the lighter half, just because Roshka's she's a little baby.
We're gonna have a snowball fight.
Yes, and changing the rules because she's not very good at it. Because they just hit her, and she's like, no, I think you should give me a pass because I'm trying to change the rules because you hit me with boiling hot water. But then also there's the unity thing, because obviously like Matsuri has been, pushing, historically protecting Suzu and sort of like hemming her in a sense. But now it's like they're able to work together more strongly. And in contrast, you have Ungai and Roshka, who like they're not an equal relationship, right? Like Roshka fucks up and Ungai's like, you're so useless, and that Roshka doesn't take that well because like their friendship isn't like as tested as Matsuri and Suzu, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're like they're like Roshka was supporting Ungai, but like once things got bad, everything fell apart for them. Where Matsuri and Suzu have been able to work together and to overcome what's ailing them, basically. So and they work together to bring her down.
Yeah, there's a real like I mean, this manga, it has a lot of the same kind of core tenets of like a jump battle manga, where like Suzu's always like leading with compassion and not fighting to like kill the enemy, but more often to try and like reason with them, and it doesn't always work out, but it's I don't know, she's a good character.
No, you definitely. As you're saying that, I thought about some stuff that happens later. Yep, they finish it up. Roshka's like, I can see you're king of the Ayakashi now, and Suzu's like, can I put on some clothes, please? Just because Mirror World's clothes didn't come with them. Unfortunate.
So I guess now both main characters have seen each other naked.
Yep.
It's a symbol of how they've grown closer as friends.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's right. Yeah. The next chapter is odd.
Yeah, I feel like this might be like one of the weakest chapters of the series for me, honestly.
Because you brought up not liking Roshka being involved with things, because not even that she's like young in appearance, because obviously like age is kind of like an arbitrary thing with anime art styles, because like you could draw whatever and say it's whatever, and you just have no choice but to accept it. But like she acts young, and that's and then she's not like the way it rounds out it's like because you talk about like the control aspect, like that's not here, like she's not, it's she doesn't want to see this thing and she ends up seeing it, and it's like it's not, and it's not that interesting either. So it's just like if the joke lands with you, it does. But if it doesn't, which it doesn't, because I don't think I thought it was very funny either.
It has like it serves the purpose of like trying to establish like a connection between Matsuri and Rochka, but it's not like outside of that. I feel like I don't know. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the joke doesn't hit for me, and like I also feel like it's not very like multi-purpose, I guess. Not that all
Mm-hmm.
chapters need to be, but
Yeah, but no, I gotcha. And then the fucking, as far as perverseness goes, like the next one being like, okay, belly button medicine, and it's like, what?
yeah, and they're even like in universe, like why does it have to be?
Yeah, it's just very transparent, as to the goals, and it's like, it is what it is. And just Suzu being grabby in her sleep, and just, yep, it's silly. I do like the way it ends, where Suzu wakes up, and I'm gonna pretend to be asleep because my lover has slipped into my bed, and it's just like, uh, and Monster's like, but she was just awake,
Yeah.
though. It's just, she's so fucking stupid. Oh, and then we get to, and now we're getting to your other favorite part of the manga, sarcasm. Because it's just it's like, damn, it's just like one chapter, like, because you just mentioned like, here's some of my issues with the Ayakashi Triangle earlier, and then it's like, oh, those issues were literally within 3 chapters of each other.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? So yeah, new teacher at the school, who's an attractive lady.
Matsuri's, fending off the boys, and then Suzu's like, don't forget that you're a boy.
Yep, and then sure enough, sexual assault, and
Yeah.
yep, again, then it keeps happening, and then it keeps
Yeah,
happening.
it's like, I think I kind of talked about it in the previous recording that like it does work to like show that she's powerful, I guess, like the fact that it's like this is an ecchi series, but yeah, that that doesn't I don't care for this.
Yeah.
I mean, like I guess the message ends up being that like Matsuri like losing focus and like needing to like and then it ties into like the next little training arc, where it's just kind of like taking on more feminine traits or
Yeah, no, it's
aspects.
like, yeah, no, that earlier chapter, like, there's not much interesting going on there with what's happening, but I say after that, it's like, yeah, because she drops some lore and some more like story stuff where it's like, oh, these Ayakashi are being unleashed, and mentioning the previous Ayakashi medium, and then of course, yeah, the training with Matsuri having to embrace his new femininity to get more power. Okay, things are moving much quicker this time. But yeah, once in the new underwear, Matsuri gets way more awkward, because I guess he's even more aware of his femininity now than he was before.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think I mentioned last time that it's like I love this plot point as like a training arc, because it's so ridiculous, but it like is entirely fitting with the tone of the series and everything. And just like, yeah, it is kind of interesting that it's again kind of like the giving like a physical representation to like an internal conflict, that like it's about Matsuri's spirit, and so even something like changing underwear, it just completely throws him for a bit.
Yeah, and then of course you have fucking Suzu and Ryo being Suzu and Ryo, where like Ryo's trying to help Matsuri, like, hey, here's your fundoshi if you wanna, don't you don't have to force yourself, and then Suzu's like, but I want to see under his skirt though. Going small like fucking Roshi or some shit. Just
Oh god, yeah, that is
it doesn't work out for her. At least, yeah, not here. Well, not here.
Oh, and then Shirogane finds her and is like, what a yummy looking mouse.
And also the last page is just kind of funny, where it's like, farewell, my fundoshi, tear streaking down the face, until the day we are reunited. And then the panty shot is just dumb. It's good, funny.
It's like take Rock Lee dropping the weights, and it's like, but make it hornier, and that's what this is.
Oh God. Yeah, no, because I do vaguely remember it comes back in the other, or like I'm pretty sure him putting back the fundoshi back on is a thing that happens.
It's a pretty major development.
Yeah, I just have less recollection of it. But anyway, Suzu does immediately get to in the next chapter, accidentally trip and pull down Matsu's skirt while he's blindfolded. So it's like, well, okay, you went through effort in the last chapter for no reason.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about it. That like, yeah, the whole previous chapter she was trying to do this thing, and then like 2 pages in.
But anyway, Matsuri gets a Ayakashi disguise as they go into a more Ayakashi inhabited area to get a that's right, Suzu's outfit, and just the stupid, like, she's being groped by an Ayakashi, and she's like, I'm gonna accept this, and it turns out that it was just getting her sizes, and she was like, making out the kind of like Matsuri dealing with Tanu, or the fucking Tanuki pot, where it's like, I'm gonna take this on because I don't want to scare or harm the Ayakashi any, or offend them or anything like that, and she and Matsuri was of course forced to be a voyeur, and
this is training. We have to endure this. And then Shirogane is like, what are you doing?
Rashika's like, what the? Are you? Why are you both blushing? And Shirogane is, it's because they're fucking stupid. They're just they're dumb.
And then the first page of the next chapter does some framing.
Do it one more time. It's not suggestive at all. But it is a callback to an earlier like volume extra, that I mentioned before. But also I guess like just the way Matsuri like is leering over Suzu, her armpit specifically is definitely like, because he mentioned that he's seeing her more as a girl now, and it's just like I don't know, I don't remember, like he's had to see her, like naked before and stuff, but I feel I don't remember him specifically like looking at her like this, like being like, his eyes wandering, it catches something like, and he just ends up staring at it when it's like to the point that Shirogane had to knock him out of it, right?
Like normally it's kind of like accidental or through circumstance, but now it's like you said, more of kind of an active like thing.
And of course, they keep it up with Matsuri as an air conditioner.
Her HP is down to 1.
It's super fucking hot. I don't know. I don't have to deal with the humidity that much, luckily, because I live in California. But looks rough.
It sucks.
No, the times I've had to deal with it is like, oh god, because it's not just hot; it's just like a heavy heat. So it's just like,
Roachka's just melting in the heat.
Yep, it's just becoming a fucking mess. But Suzu's outfit is done, so they're going off to deal with the Ayakashi, the drought one. I also like in the next chapter where Suzu's messing around in her outfit, and Matsuri is getting a good look, and just like again, following up with her, him seeing her as a woman, because it like literally zooms in on her tummy, her armpit, and her like thigh, and he's like, I like it, and it's like, yeah, you like it, of course you do. But it's he has his fetishes, and it's just like so it's very, especially like the armpit recurring like twice last chapter. It's like very clear as to where what he likes about Suzu's physically. So
it's also kind of interesting. Like on the reread, like how long it takes before Suzu finally like gets her gear, and because it's like prior to that she wasn't really like, this is where she's finally kind of starting to get on their level and like be able to like fight for herself, and that's cool.
Yeah, because like I guess after they fought Rashka in the mirror world, now like she's fully fledged as she's not a full exorcist, but she can exist and fight in this world. So now she's just part of the team, and you got all the ninjas going out to Yeah, they need to lure out the Hiderigami, so they all put on fucking swimsuits and have summer fun to piss off the Ayakashi.
But it just eventually becomes a battle between Reo and Suzu over Matsuri, and like to a point where it's like, yeah, they are a bit distracted. They kind of forgot about their mission a little bit.
And Soga fucking dies because he sees a nipple. Just rip Bozo.
Glad he could contribute. Oh yeah, right. Matsuri also like, because there was one point I think where Matsuri referred to him as the first name Soga, but goes back to Ninakuru. So I'm like, not quite sure. Like he says, it's you're still older than me, so it's kind of like
okay, gotcha,
a sign of respect. But
right, a seniority thing. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, like I don't know if that comes up more as far as like those two getting closer.
Also, it starts getting hotter, and I like the page turn where it's just Suzu's just fucking dead and floating in the water. She doesn't take the heat very well. Then, yeah, the Suzu-Reo clash over Matsuri, which finally pisses off the Ayakashi. And of course, because of the fucking training of giving up the Funtoshi, he's powered up and he's able to fight because, he obviously wasn't able to deal with the Ghost King, but he can, stand toe-to-toe with this other similar power level Ayakashi.
Yeah. And then we get the iconic panel where it's like, I'm not a girl just for show.
Let's go! And then Suzu steps in because she, you mentioned the compassion. It's like, yeah, she wants to, she doesn't want the Ayakashi to be consumed by his anger, but, God, and actually rereading it, I'm noticing because, like, as their hands are coming closer, you can see the Ayakashi energy surrounding his hand. Which is why Matsuri stepped into act. Because at first it's definitely like, it seems like, oh, but Matsuri, what the fuck are you doing? But it's like, oh no, he was trying to hurt you. Where it's like she wasn't able to get through to him, and he had to be exorcised because otherwise he'd just continue to hurt people. And I also like the more sort of further, like, he's an Ayakashi that's been sealed away. But unlike where the Ghost King, where people just forgot who he is, which I guess, like, people still deal with heat, but in modern times, it's not as big of a deal, right? Because, we have, they have air conditioning and modern technology that's able to deal with the heat, so people aren't fussed about it as much on a personal level. So, yeah.
And Matsuri and Suzu are communicating about their problems now. Like, it's not just, kind of the some level of like misunderstanding or one person trying to kind of think for the other. It's cool.
Yeah, no, Matsuri's not just putting himself above Suzu. He's like, hey, this is why I did this thing, and they're able to talk about it, which is nice. And we have Roshika and Matsuri interaction round 2. Grandpa is Santa Claus apparently, and also Roshika's a fucking gamer.
This chapter does like the same thing where like there's like a sexual gag in there, but I definitely feel like this one's a more interesting chapter in terms of like the two characters bonding.
Yeah, because like it's mostly just like Roshika ending up naked, but as we know, Matsuri, like he's not he's not even like, he doesn't really see anything this time, so. It's definitely like more meant to be erotic, but it's just compared to last time, it's like there's no characters who are just forcibly like being revealed to others in ways they don't want to, if that makes sense. So and Roshika's still tsundere about it. Like, it's not like I opened up to you or anything, Kazumaki. Oh yep, here's then going into the next chapter. Yayo is being haunted by a spooky Ayakashi, and Lou does her Ultraman ultra poses.
And then it's like, I think I'm possessed by a ghost. Do you know how to exercise it? And Lou's like, you need to distinguish between fantasy and reality.
Yeah. She does. Gotcha. And Yayo even responds to that. It's funny.
Yeah, and I think like this chapter is also kind of interesting because like Yayo, like, for the most part, tries to deal with it herself. Like, she does open up to Lou initially, but, like, thinking that, oh, she's out there, she wouldn't judge me for this. But like even with like Suzu and Matsuri, where it's like obviously we as the reader know that like they would probably be aware of it, but Yayo kind of ducks out and
yeah, no, she gets a bunch of like projective charms and shit, which I was thinking about just because I thought about how like because Ayakashi in part like gain power and through human thought, and so like the fact that she's getting these charms, like she's thinking about the Ayakashi more strongly as a thing, to be repelled, basically. So, but they're ineffective because like that's not how the rules of the world work. But she's just in thinking about the Ayakashi more, she's possibly making it stronger and making it worse in a sense. So I don't think that's necessarily like a thing, but it was a thought I had of like how like because I was just thinking about how like she bought all these charms that were completely ineffectual. So
yeah, I guess it's also kind of interesting, like the way that she sort of isolates herself and is like, I don't want this to possess anyone else. No one else should like have to experience this horror. So it's kind of like similar in a way to how Matsuri and Suzu kind of are like keeping secrets from her. Mm-hmm. So I think this is kind of a good like way to resolve that thread with Yayo specifically.
Yeah, where it's she was hiding things, and then she gets revealed things that were being hidden to her when Matsuri comes in to save her, and Suzu joins in so they can fight this this monster.
Yeah, and Yayo's even able to like step in and provide a distraction, so like she helps them save the day, and that's why I really like the progression of like. Initially it's a secret, but now we're like a good 50 chapters in. And so starting to kind of let the other characters in, because it kind of gives them a little more, at least with Yayo. Like, I don't feel like she was much of a character prior to this. She just would show up every now and then.
Yeah,
but like,
she was just kind of a friend and more of an, I mean, compared to like the other three, she's just like the normal one, basically. Where so she doesn't stand out as much because obviously Lou is very silly and fun, right? So but now she's part of this world in her own way as that sort of outside lens.
A cool power of friendship moment, and like a non-combatant character like still being able to kind of help out in ways. Then Suzu prays for the Ayakashi that they exercise, hoping that it can be nicer in its next life. But they finishing it up, they talk about how telling whether they should tell Lou or not, and they reason that like she because it's like because she's more focused on sci-fi and stuff, she'd be less receptive to the supernatural. But they do say that if she starts like directly seeing shit, then it's like, okay, like they'll need to tell her if it's dangerous, but I guess they've reasoned that there's no real point to it now, especially when it's like, if she can't see it, I mean, and she has shown that she can, like, obviously she saw the econ in the photos and stuff, but especially the UFO Ayakashi. Like, she just straight up saw that one, so it's like, it's definitely something she's, kind of like Yayo, where she's potentially capable of it, but it hasn't quite clicked yet, so, I really like the chapter 53 like cover art. I don't think that's the word.
The cover page with the the boy Matsuri, is that the one?
Yeah, because it's like it's just a very good visual representation of how like, especially with this chapter in particular, where it's kind of like a little coming out moment where it's like, well, do we tell her that I'm actually a guy or do we just roll with it? And it's like, Yayo is cool, and it goes well.
Or I guess that's like after, because they do before that they get to the telling Yayo, they have a sleepover, and Suzu just being really forward and wanting to get basically teasing Matsuri is how it's hard not to see it that way, and Matsuri is like, well, I just
and Matsuri has a comment like, maybe I'm more suited to be a girl. And so that kind of sets up things.
Yeah, or Suzu says that, but maybe that's what you meant. But
no, Matsuri is like talking to Suzu and says like, maybe I'm more suited to be a girl. Maybe I should stay this way.
Oh, I thought Suzu said, and then, oh no, you're right. Suzu's quoting Matsuri saying that. My bad. I read the right. I was reading the wrong line. Never mind.
There's another "we're both girls" line.
Yep. As always. And Rita sort of playing wingman by keeping Shirogane away. So he doesn't even know that the cat hates what they'd be up, the shameless things that they'd be up to, but he's just and yeah, Yayo does accept Matsuri. I just was laughing because I looked at the next page and just like, yeah, they told Lou and she just didn't believe it. She just but yeah, no, like you mentioned with the coming out moment, yeah, it's good. And Yayo's a yeah bro, you could say. Or not. Don't say that. I won't. I already did. Fuck.
I was like stuck because like now we're past the point of where I have the physical volumes and like the thing it like froze up on me for a second. No! So I'm like, I can't get to the next chapter.
Yeah, I'm on 55.
Literal transphobia in real time, not letting me read my Ayakashi Triangle.
Your computer's transphobic? Unfortunate.
But yeah, this is kind of one of those moments as well where like we talked about it earlier that I guess I mostly talked about it, how like, this manga easily has the opportunity to portray all this like pervy stuff as like Matsuri, like the gender swap could, like he doesn't jump at the opportunity to like do all this pervy stuff because of it. Like he's still very respectful and sticks to like his principles and yeah.
No, sorry, you just made me think of fucking Sora no Toshimono, Heaven's Lost Property, because it's not a regular thing, but there are a couple times where the main character becomes a girl for pervy reasons. And it's just, it's so fucking stupid.
Well, I know we've even covered manga in the past that have had, like, gender swap chapters or, like, little arcs.
The one
I think, like, Soul Eater had it. One Piece had it.
Gintama.
Or One Piece, did they just swap characters?
They swapped bodies, yeah. But that still got you thinking about it, I remember. Because, like, there was still, mostly through Sanji and Nami, right?
Yeah.
I think it's especially where, like, Sanji being a pervert and now in an attractive woman's body, he was, being a piece of shit. So it was really fucking stupid when he grabbed his own breast to run faster. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, sorry, it's just so absurd. I couldn't help but think about it. But no, yeah, it's yeah.
I think also what this chapter is kind of doing and is sort of a building point that like, Matsuri does kind of entertain the idea of, like, staying a girl forever, but it's, like, in the way that, like, this manga is progressing, it's, like, it's not in rejection of his masculinity, like, it's not a one or the other sort of, like, mental process, I guess.
Okay, yeah, because, that's fair, because, it's definitely, like, at least at first, he was more, like, willing to be a girl forever to accomplish his mission, but now then as he becomes more attached to that side of himself, then it's more of a like, well, what do you prefer, right? So yeah. Anyway, Matsuri and Soga are out scouting, and they run into May. Well, of course, specifically it's Shadow May, as they establish, where it's like she's very specifically like the negative emotions, not the so basically like. So, because I think we also see the younger Suzu as well, who I pretty sure has all the memories, period, but May specifically has the disdain for humanity.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it kind of earlier, and by earlier I mean yesterday. Like the way that the Ayakashi sort of powers are handled, like this, could be like how in I think like Hunter x Hunter and some other series kind of have the like the strength of emotions can kind of like manifest after death kind of. So like May having such strong emotions that like like as she was dying, like this separate just like mass of that hatred like took form, and it's cool.
Yeah, and now I'm also thinking about both Jujutsu Kaisen and Shaman King, where it's like she's just like, yeah, I want humans to come to an end, and it's like, yep, we got another one of those spiritual person who just, I mean, this one obviously, yeah, I think this is after that would have been published in Jujutsu Kaisen, but so it's definitely it's a trope. It's probably gone on longer than all three of these series, but it's just like. It's just interesting that we read one after the other while the other one is airing. Like they're all like very much at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, it might also be like some like the concept of like the fragmentation of the self that like Mei is this like rage given form, and like Suzu has like smaller Suzu that has all the memories. So it's like there's probably more to that I don't have like context for.
No, yeah, I know what your general like the ego and super ego kind of discussion lines. Like I don't know enough about it either, but now I'm wondering. Like, I wonder if it does fall into those. But yeah, Mei is able to, even though Matsuru's come so far, Mei is completely overpowering him. And Soga's like, yeah, my head, yeah, you're a naked woman and my head's about to explode, but he's my friend and my rival. I'm gonna help him. And it's like, let's go. Which I mean, we kind of talked about like where like in a series where so many ecchi moments happen, like we kind of wish for like them just be. It makes sense that they'd eventually be more desensitized to it, like right? Like imagine if a fairy tale, if by the end of it Lucy's just like, I'm naked again. Oh fucking well, right?
Yeah.
Instead of getting embarrassed by it again, right? So this is like kind of that in a sense where it's like Soga's so used to he's getting flustered about it, and he is growing over that in a sense of just like, yeah, whatever, you're naked, but I gotta help my friend though. So yeah.
Yeah, that like the embarrassment isn't so powerful that it's like, oh, my friend's in trouble. Oh well.
And then as they're trying to escape, some mysterious boy comes in, who we know to be Sosuke, who I totally forgot came back. Though it's also funny because I had the thought, because his name is Sosuke, and especially the way his eye patch is, I just thought of Sosuke Aizen post Arankar, because he's got kind of the eye patch thing going on with covering one of his eyes. And it's just like, oh yeah, just a little, just a weird coincidence of like these two, if I had a nickel for two characters named Sosuke who had, an eye, this eye thing over their eye, like just, I don't know, it just came to mind. They're obviously completely different as characters, but it's just like, hey, wait a minute.
It is also kind of interesting, like obviously, as like a character, I like his sort of progression. But bringing back the like to establish that like, oh, Mei is a genio, so like here's the other character that we knew to be like one of those forms.
Yeah. And then also just something about their dynamic, because well, one, Mei being abusive is like she rejects humanity, but it's not like she loves Ayakashi either, right? Like she's kind of in rejecting the world, she's basically rejecting everything in a sense, where Suzu obviously loves both humans and Ayakashi, even as the bridge between the worlds, so to speak. But also I know you didn't finish it, but something about their dynamic also reminds me of Akane and what's his name, Anti in SSSS Gridman, where you basically have like a younger guy and an older woman who's kind of abusive towards him, and as a authority figure. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how far you got into Gridman, but
no, I finished Gridman.
Oh, you finished it? Okay, yeah, but just like because especially the one I think I used it in my video of him just like Anti fucks up, so Akane just throws a phone at him and hits him in the head, and I don't know, something about that. I don't know. Yeah, it's just something about that dynamic. Just I thought about it while reading these chapters. But yeah, Matsuri goes to Suzu because she's in danger. She's out looking for sweets because of course she fucking is.
Also, just the justification of like, what happened to you? Bike accident. It's like, okay.
Then Mei and Sosuke run into Suzu, with Mei possessing her. Oh shit. This is basically the final arc, more or less, of the reading. So yeah. And Mei's also able to sort of like, I kind of like how Mei possessing Suzu is kind of giving it. It's like a flash forward for what Suzu could be capable of by because she's using, and then of course there's even just the like sense of like how they talk about like sensor powers revolve around life. She can give an excess of life to bring about, I will fly like a butterfly and bring an end to the human world. It's just it's cool. And Matsuri's mom comes in, and you get kind of a battle of the you kind of like that Orochimaru Jiraiya Tsunade shit where it's like, oh yeah, here's the strong characters fighting. Showing
it's
the
like
gap
here,
between, yes,
like here's the power ceiling that the characters will have to break through eventually.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't even think about how like it's literally like Matsuri's mom, who's literally like bigger Matsuri, versus Mei, who's literally literally bigger Suzu, much bigger Suzu, because she does like the giant's Omokage thing. So it's not even just like. Which I guess is also, fitting to the Naruto comparison, because one, ninjas, and two, like, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade are all the mentors to Team 7. So it's like, so they're the bigger Team 7, and here's bigger Matsuri and Suzu fighting. So it's like, yeah.
I also just love that page where, the giant Omokage gets summoned. So it's like Suzu and then like the halo and then just giant Suzu and it's all sketchy and
with the eyes being all shadowed and
I think that was around the time when I was first reading this where I'm like, oh shit, this is a good action series.
And it's still a good comedy series because I like the page in the next chapter where Matsuru's like, Mom, don't fight her, and she just like fucking slaps him. And it's like, has your brain stopped working? Like, and something about her expression being like, what the fuck, bro? And it's I don't know, made me laugh.
And also that Suzu is kind of trapped in a world of sweets, like internally.
She's, just... she's a slut for two things, Matsuri and sweets. But yeah, Matsuri, or not, Maid disables, I don't even know her name. Mom. I'm just calling her Mama Matsuri, because I literally forget.
I don't remember her name either.
But yeah, she's able to. She uses a technique and she's able to fend it off, but she becomes disabled. So Matsuri steps in. We get a popularity poll, which I guess we could talk about real quick. We only get the first 5. The Suzu number 1. Which is fair because she's very funny. Matsuri number 2, which I cool. Let's let the main 2 are at the top. Like that's the best we can hope for. Roscoe's number 3, which is cool. I mean, I'm not my personal number 3, but she's cute. I get it. Lucy at number 4, which also cute. So I get it. Shirogane at number 5 because he's okay. It's just okay. All 5 of them are cute. Like it can't be helped.
Yeah, it's like this definitely wouldn't be my top 5. But like it is interesting to see. Yeah, because I think this is the only popularity poll, unless I'm forgetting one.
I mean, because I feel like when did it move over to Jump Plus? Do you remember? Off the top of your head?
Was somewhere in the 80s.
So okay, so a couple months off of this, so there probably wouldn't. I mean, maybe, I feel like it's less likely for there to be a poll for a Jump Plus series, or at least I just maybe Spy Family has had one, but I literally just don't remember because I'm just trying to think of like, well, what Jump Plus series have I read that have had popularity polls, and I just can't think of any off the top of my head. So because it's a little different form, medium and format that those are released, so I can see why they wouldn't necessarily have them. Because obviously with Jump, they're already getting the individual issue votes for what were your favorite 3 things this issue. Like they're already getting mail, so them getting mail for the online for the popularity polls is just like natural. But for Jump Plus, it's purely online, so I don't know how they would do it. I mean, they could just do it online because obviously you've had like polls like the Naruto or the One Piece or the Chainsaw Man ones that had people putting in votes online. So So yeah, getting to the end of the conflict, Matsuri kisses Suzu so that he can use himself as a impurity absorbing fan, and Mei tries to use that connection to basically kill Matsuri with the life powers, but the Suzu and the younger Suzu stop her. Younger Suzu saying that she wants to give humanity another chance, basically through you know, a Suzu who isn't burdened by their past, basically, and the hatred of the past, because, you know, how is the, you know, knowledge of the past going to inform, you know, it can inform the present in some ways, but clearly, like, there's a disparity, so, you know, yeah. And
I also like a detail I noticed, which I'm not sure how much meaning it holds, but like, you know, Matsuri's pinwheel breaks, and like also when his mom tries to like go after Suzu, she's like using a tool, but like, you know, in the end, it's like I don't know if there's like a crossing of like the Exorcist ninja world and like the human world that like Matsuri, you know, doesn't solve the issue with like one of those ninja tools, but just like a kiss. It's like that moment of like connection.
That's true. Yeah, where he's solving it as a person. You know, the human world that Suzu's bringing him into, not as an Ayakashi or exorcist, basically, right? So is that what you're getting at, maybe?
Yeah, that it's kind of like, you know, the Ayakashi world and the human world, sort of like, it's not like, I don't know, it's like something along
I guess what kind of also makes sense in the sense of like what burdened May was the Ayakashi world, in a sense, like you know, she was exercised by, I mean, maybe it was just regular humans, but you know, it was for their superstitions and their hatred and the same kind of feelings that like a fear of Ayakashi that birthed Ayakashi exorcists, right? You know, but you know, she's also human, and you know, Matsuri was you know, connecting with Suzu for their humanity. So, maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that it's sort of like I feel like I'm like so close to grasping what I'm trying to say, but I'm just like not quite there.
Yeah, no, I feel like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like, it's definitely like, you know, a development in like their romantic relationship. And yeah, just like, I guess, you know, Matsuri kind of like it's part of as well, like connecting to Suzu like as a girl and like learning to kind of like respect her as her own person and to not always feel like he needs to do whatever he can to like they can meet on an even ground.
Yeah.
Maybe someone in the comments will be able to
maybe
point something out.
I do want to know who else in this world is like being big brained about Ayakashi Triangle, because I feel like, you know, it's a series that people generally wouldn't give the respect to do that, basically, you know. So yeah, it is interesting. Like, I'm having fun talking about it. So
like it's a very like it's serving like multiple functions, and I also just like in terms of like the sort of comedy of it that Suzu didn't have access to her body, but the second it's like, oh, we're in the middle of a kiss, get out. Like, this is mine.
No, his lips are mine. Yeah, yeah. No. And yeah, also the way it ends, where it's like her lips were sweet, and Shogun is just like, it was the fucking Mont Blanc, you idiot.
I wonder if that's kind of like poking at a trope.
Oh,
like
no,
the specific like line.
There's definitely a first kiss, like, well, I especially remember it in We Never Learn, which is, you know, the harem comedy manga, and where like there's one of the girls she's like, your first kiss is supposed to taste like lemons or something like that, and she even like has an accidental like first kiss, but she's like, that one didn't count because it didn't taste like lemons. So there's definitely a trope of like romanticizing the first kiss, basically, and it tasting a certain way or something, when it's not really that simple, or like, and you know, and in this case it's like, you know, Matsu, yeah, it's like, oh, my first kiss was tasted so sweet, and it's like that there's a literal reason for that. It's not a romantic thing, you're just being stupid, Matsuri. So that's my takeaway, at least.
I also think it's kind of funny that just with the way the panels are laid out, I guess, that like while they're like in the middle of their kiss, like, you know, May gets like expelled from the body, but they're like
they're still
looking
kissing.
away. Yeah.
And Natsu's just like, talk to the hand. Just
and then yeah, I think Suzu kind of even like is commenting on it afterwards, like to her like inner self, that like that wasn't just like, there was an excuse for it, but it's like that wasn't just for the like, there was something more to it.
Yeah, the mouth resuscitation comparison. And,
yeah, it's like, no, that's what it was. And it's like, sure, Matsuri.
And yeah, ultimately the mission of, you know, it's your duty as the Ayakashi medium to put a stop to May. So, you know, the mission. And also, Suzu has the poster of the To Love Ru character on her door. I noticed.
Oh yeah,
it's much clearer than it was earlier in the manga.
Oh, that's true.
So, and yeah, so as I was scrolling through it, I noticed because you sent the images that I put in the episodes. So yeah,
it's also just like the fact that like Matsuru's like, oh, I hope she didn't mind kissing me. Like he's so dense.
And of course Reo like so dramatic to be saved by a kiss, and Matsuru's like, but it wasn't a kiss. I was just being an important period observing fan, and Suzu's like, you fucking told her. They're just so stupid. But yeah, they have their resolve, their mission. But Garaku comes in, and he's very openly professed his love for Mei. And so he uses his paint to seal Matsuru's jutsu. The glasses come off, which actually now I think about it. So because I mentioned Aizen before, and there's also another character in Tokyo Babylon, the Clamp manga, where it's like the main character has a friend who's an older guy with glasses on. And it turns out he's a fucking murderer, and there's some shit going on, and at that point the glasses come off. Major Aizen vibes of like he feels like a proto Aizen. Yeah. So I do wonder if like, because now that I thought of it, like I mentioned the Bleach comparison earlier, and it's like I mean Bleach is popular. I can see Yabuki having read it. So and just the fact that when Garaku's like allegiances come into play, right? Like because I mentioned how it's like it was very rare how we saw both of his eyes before. And now it's like the mask is off. Basically, he's in love with Mei. His glasses are gone, right? So it's similar. It's similar to Aizen and Seishiro in that, like, when we see the real self, the glasses are gone, basically. So yeah, just a similar symbol use, I guess. And then he even summons like a Fujin and a Raijin to fight Matsuri, a wind god and a thunder god, maybe, or yeah, that's definitely it. But yeah, also they're stronger now, because before Garaku was like kicking their ass, but now Shirogane and Suzu are able to come in, and Suzu's like, it's my turn to protect Matsuri. It's like, let's go!
Let's go!
Right?
Like I feel like this whole conflict with them as well, I feel like is also kind of like inherently like challenging those kind of gender roles. Maybe I already talked about this in the earlier part of the discussion, but just like, that usually it's like, oh, the guy protects the girl. And it's like, that's what Matsuri is always trying to do. But here it's like Suzu finally gets to like step up and, like they're on a level playing field, that it's like, it's, I had the thought and then it fizzled out.
No, I mean, I thought you were going to bring up how it also feels in an action series in general, but also Battle Shonen, like the character wanting to protect everything and struggling to do so. Like, because I feel like Bleach and One Piece are two big examples, right? Where Luffy and Ichigo both had these big arcs revolving around, like, they keep putting themselves in front of their comrades and at risk of the expense of themselves, but it's like, no, they have to have more faith in their comrades, even if they are the strongest, basically. I guess I'm also thinking about it because I've been reading Tokyo Ghoul, rereading rather, and that's also an aspect with Kaneki. So that's why I mentioned action series. It's not a shonen, but I mentioned action series because it's like, oh yeah, just but yeah, it's also part of it's got that here too. So yeah, it's like, yeah, cool. Also interesting, because Garaku's talking with Mei, and Mei realizes, oh, maybe you didn't want to kill Kazumaki Matsuri. And I don't know, just notice you can see both of Garaku's eyes behind it. So it's like maybe she's just pierced right through him because, she understands him because they've known each other for so long, technically, or at least a long time. Or kind of. There was a big hiatus there. Oh yeah, I didn't notice this before. But yeah, anyway, Mei sends Sosuke to take care of Matsuri and Suzu, and I just I just laughed because they're talking about the cursed seal and stuff, and while Yayo is like, oh, those two are in trouble again, in the background Lou is just like meditating in a small pyramid, and it's not called attention to or brought up again. I just like so that's why I just didn't notice it before, or it didn't stick out to me for some reason. When I'm looking at it again, it's like, how did it not? That is very silly. Lou, you're a goofball. And also the way Sosuke attacks Matsuri in the fucking toilet, and he's like, you fucking pervert. And of course, Sosuke is unable to put up a fight because he's smaller and weaker and hungry because he hasn't been eaten. Which makes it actually funnier that Suzu tries to like I don't know. I like the page where because he's like, I can engulf. I could devour your life force anytime I want. And then Suzu comes in, and it's like, if you look at just the top panel without the dialogue, it looks like a kind of like important moment with just the way it's framed and the lighting and something about, but then Suzu's just like because she's eating. She's doing the thing that Sosuke won't right now. Yeah. And it's like, you little shit. You're just like flexing, aren't you? But yeah, it's like basically Suzu crying over him humanized the things that he would, the Ayakashi and the energy that he would normally eat. So, he can't just eat anymore, so he's lost his appetite.
I feel like the way that Suzu handles the situation is also interesting because, like, he asks, like, why did you do it? And she responds, like, it's a secret. Like, you'll know when you figure it out, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Right, just, yeah. Forcing him to come to the understanding instead of just explaining it. Yeah. But yeah, then Mei activates Sosuke's ability, his power, and basically controlling his engulfing shadow. Seigen is like, it's up to me to handle this, and he stands up and he's got a cool ass panel looking Netero looking motherfucker. And then he's just like, my back, I'm old. Ow! He's fucking dead. Even Roshka even calls him dead. Are you okay? And he's like, no, he's dead. You just said it yourself.
God damn it. I also feel like there's probably something like something about Hinojiki kind of being like devoured by his own power.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, actually, now that you think about it, there's I think it's called what is it called? I want to say not atrophy. Hypertrophy. It's something like that. It comes up in Toriko, but it's basically when your body is so hungry, it starts eating itself to survive, basically. Like, that's why you lose a lot of your muscle and fat cells when you are starving, basically, because your body is literally consuming itself to survive. Because I don't think they quite resolve, or at least maybe I'm just misremembering, but because you need to eat to survive. But Sosuke's an Ayakashi, so maybe the rules are a little different. Though I did think about Monogatari just now, because that's also a setting in which you have these supernatural beings who are revolved around human thought and perception. And that series has the rule of if one of these supernatural beings starts rejecting its own nature, it will literally get eaten by an extra force that goes around killing all. So I just had the thought of what would happen if Sosuke is rejecting his nature as an Ayakashi in a sense, and so generally what we've seen is they grow weaker because or no, at least that's if they're rejected by humanity. I don't know if we've had a Ayakashi like this who rejects his own nature, so to speak. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how, because does he need to eat to survive? Does he need to? I don't know how it works.
Well, it is kind of interesting that as his character, as the series goes along, and the more he kind of rejects that nature, he does, he's smaller than when he first showed up. And then I'm pretty sure at the end of the conflict, he's even tinier.
Oh, I didn't notice that, because obviously he's bigger here during the conflict because he's getting, big and out of control. But I didn't notice him being smaller than before at the end. So, though to move on a little bit and maybe push this conversation to the future, I thought, because Roshka does her disguise release, and so she gets a little transformation sequence. But I don't know, when she's Roshka is here, and something about the way she's proportioned, she just looks really small. Probably because she has such a big dress, and it's just extra cute. So.
Oh yeah, I also like the line from Suzu, there's no way I'm abandoning you when you're trying to change.
Yeah, she's good.
Oh, and I really like the connection of the mirror world and Matsuri's kind of powers being cut off. That Suzu, I think how it's even described is it might not have been intentional, but Suzu gave you a hint.
No, yeah, I do like the way Matsuri's powers go this arc.
Yeah, and I guess you brought up the idea of unity earlier, that even it's like Suzu standing up to protect Matsuri, it's not like, the goal isn't that she does everything either. It's that mutual, like, because she's fighting on her own without Matsuri, but still can't, get it done. And so, like, a unity. I lost my point again.
I also like how, like the way, because she gets her arm eaten off as her Omokage, and the pain is rough, but then, like, she's able to push past it because she's thinking of how Matsuri has gone through so much pain for her sake, and just, like, I don't know, the panel of her, like, I have to endure this is nothing, and she's, like, crying and just clearly having a bad time, but, like, she's pushing through it. It's like, yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah, that is, I'm trying to think. I feel like there are definitely other moments like that where it's sort of, I might be thinking of Gakko Garashi, where, like, one of the girls has a shovel, and, like, the shovel, like, another character picks it up at a different point, and it's like, wow, this is so heavy, and it's, like,
recognizing,
symbolic of, like,
the other character and what they've been going through, basically.
Yeah, okay. So I like this moment where it's sort of like, if I'm dealing with this pain now, like, Matsuri's been fighting all these battles, so it's sort of like, she gets a little, it's like, just as Hinojiki eventually, like, feels what she feels about why, Suzu cried for him when he was, like, fading away, she kind of gets a bit of that with Matsuri here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, also just the fact that she would, like, put herself in harm's way for, like, to go so far as to, like, deal with all this pain to help Hinojiki when he is still an active threat. Yeah, she's just a really admirable character.
Yeah, and of course it also, like, him eating part of her power, which is, very desirable as an Ayakashi medium. Like, he gets a boost and becomes more dangerous. So, like you said, she isn't able to handle things alone quite yet. And Matsuru's able to sort of figure out how to fight even with his powers sealed. And, the sort of storm inside, so to speak. Because he just is able to become more physically powerful. So, yeah, the limitation ends up leading to a power-up for him, which is cool.
Yeah. There's probably also kind of, like, that self-sacrifice sort of, like, with Suzu kind of, like, putting herself out there for her opponent, and, like, but it's, that's not the solution.
Yeah. And yeah, they are able, like, they end up defeating Sosuke by teaming up, where Suzu, reaches in to grab the maze origami, and Matsuri is able to free it. So, they do have to work together still, especially with, because Suzu isn't quite fully fledged, and Matsuri isn't at his full capabilities either, even if found another strength for his seal, basically.
I also like the gag where he's like, suit up, and then the tool doesn't work because he can't put that energy out.
Right.
Oh yeah, and you get, like, that full page spread where I almost said where Matsuri, like, kicks him. And, it's an ecchi, so it's fan service as well, but it also, like, just sells the impact of the moment.
Yeah. But anyway, they free Sosuke, and he's he doesn't have the corruption in his eye anymore, I noticed.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that going through it before. And yeah, since that's how they solve the conflict. So without the engulfing shadow, he doesn't have his hunger anymore. Because there we go. That explains it. And he wants to make it up for the things he's done in the past, the wrongs that he's the Akashi he's eaten. Yeah. And then this was one of my bigger laughs in this reading, where Matsuru's like, hey, I got a cool new technique, let me show it off. But then the seal wears off, and his clothes just explode off. And just, I don't know, something about the timing of it it's funny to me.
Yeah, no, it's a really effective gag, especially, like, at the end of the conflict, that it's just, really hammering home that, like, the tension is gone, get a good laugh. It's, yeah.
And something about, like, just, obviously in this case it makes sense, but just, like, something about, like, clothes explode off there's something inherently funny about that to me, and I can't explain why. But I can't think of other instances. But I will avoid going off on more tangents, because that's exactly what we need. But yeah, Suzu, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like in the next chapter is when we're really starting to see that, like, Suzu, like, horny Suzu is, like, real, like, I feel like, she's always been lewd, but this is where she starts really being very forward about it.
And this is to go even further beyond.
Like, there's a panel I really like with her where, they're just kind of walking down the street, and Matsuri, like pouts, and she just is, like, grabbing at her chest, and there's all these hearts, like, flying around, and she's just like, oh, he's so cute.
Yeah, she's losing her shit. And then the fucking Omakage comes out, and it's like, to say what she's hiding in herself, and she's like, no, shut up, you idiot. But yeah, I was gonna go on a tangent, because, like, it's just a little aside, but you see Shirogane there with the volume of Me and Roboco. And so I basically, I I have a relationship with Me and Roboco.
Okay.
But also there's definitely a mutual of any manga to put in I have Shirogane reading. I even brought it before where it's like a wholesome read. I do legitimately think that, but here's a page from Roboco where you have a Roboco drawn by Yabuki. In context, basically, of this chapter is like they're fucking around with phone cameras, and they just that picture comes out really cute. But the author has used it at other times, because like one of the like Roboco is very vain of a character and will try to pass it off as herself, and it's like, oh, we look alike, and it's like, no, you don't. But anyway, so it's like there's a mutual respect, and in general, the author of Roboco definitely like loves Jump and manga in general, and is very like respectful towards other creators and stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to offhandedly say that, like, because I feel like Roboco gets a lot of hate, which maybe is part of, well, not a major part, but it's definitely partly amusing to me, just because, like, I don't know, people getting mad at something that's just so like people getting mad at Among Us or Pickle Rick or whatever, just silly shit. Like, I don't know, maybe I can't imagine getting that angry over something so like inconsequential. But it's like, I will say, I just wanted to say, because like I feel like the audience here maybe doesn't necessarily get, because like I with Roboco, like I made a joke with Mathwiz where I'm like, oh yeah, normally I have a 20-minute discussion about gender, but this time we're gonna have a 5-hour conversation podcast about gender, and then 20 minutes about pig fiction, because I was gonna bring up Roboco, and but it's like, I just want to state that my exaggeration it's not like an irony. Like I do legitimately like the manga. I think it's definitely not always funny. Like, not every chapter lands, but like it makes me laugh. It does have wholesome moments. I enjoyed the anime. Like, it's fun. I like it. I did hate it at first, and then I got over it, and then I started just legitimately liking it. And so it just, like, I don't think the author's, like, the author has it here because he there's something he enjoys about it, I think, and like, so he'd have a character just reading it. And I don't know, something about that, it's like, yeah, Roboco. But yeah, I just mostly want to state that because it's like, I feel like my exaggerated like of it could be read as like an ironic like I dislike it and I'm pretending that I don't, but the actuality is I do like it. I just like exaggerate it because it's funnier, because it makes people mad, because it does get a lot of hate. So I don't know, I just wanted to share, because it's like a little tangent on Roboco that I've been reading the manga since it started, so it's like I've seen that Yabuki image of Roboco a couple times in the manga, so yeah, just wanted to share. But anyway, Roshka is helping. Just the way Matsuri like dives into the bath, and but it's Roshka prepared the bath, so it's ice bath, and it doesn't.
And
go
Sagan's
very well.
just in the background, like, that would have killed me.
Yeah, good thing Matsuri took that bullet. And fucking Yayo being a good wingman, where it's like, oh, Suzu, you like Matsuri, huh? Hey, Matsuri, Suzu's got something to tell you, and Suzu's like, no.
It's also just really cool how she, like, earlier in this reading, she just found out about everything and was like, well, okay, I see it, so I believe it. And now she's really just rolling with it and giving, like, great advice, because, she's the smart one.
Yeah, no, and like, this is her life now. Like, it's silly to just get hung up on the little details. Just, she's just being a good friend to her friends, and it's like, yeah. And of course, Suzu being awkward about the confession, because she just doesn't want to. If she's friend zoned, she's gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'd ever recover. And when Matsuri gives her the sweet potato snack, and Suzu's just fucking crying because I love you, Matsuri, and it's like, the next chapter is
no one would confess with sweet potato in their mouth, right? No one would do that.
And they even do like they kind of play it off, which is it's such a romance trope of just like the confession gets played off, and which people get mad about. I've said it before. My read on that is like especially like it happens a lot in Nisekoi. Like there's an early one where childhood friend character is about to confess, and a baseball goes through the window, and she doesn't confess. But she even says right after that, it's like, she kind of doesn't want to confess because she likes the way things are now, and if she confesses, things are going to change. So how I read it is that like if the confession doesn't go through, like you could argue like because it's a chapter ending thing, right? That's going to make people react like the status quo is changing, right? So then if the confession doesn't go through, it's like the author's just playing with the audience. But it's also like there's the thing of like the characters want things to change, but they also don't want things to change, right? So it's like dealing with that. The frustration is understandable, but it's also like an external representation of like how the characters are feeling, right? But in this case, it does go through because like Suzu tries to play it off, and she's just like this is awkward. I'm just gonna play it off like this doesn't happen. But then Matsui's like, I love you, Suzu. Like no, I do feel like and there are I'm starting to see it as a girl, and like just the feelings are mutual and they've changed, and it's like Suzu's fucking crying, and Shuriken is like, no, what have I done? No.
Oh yeah, the page where he's like he came up with the gender swap jutsu to like he says to punish lovey-dovey couples, and then in the end
lovey-dovey wins out.
Yeah, it was like if anything him doing that brought them closer. So yeah, just an overwhelming defeat. It's a really good moment. And yeah, just like more on the topic of like the will they won't they kind of stuff. I feel like for me it's kind of but I feel like both kinds of storytelling have their place. But like I definitely do like this moment partially because of those sorts of like other stories. It's like a spectrum of like media, depictions of things, I guess. And like, I feel like, I said that like, Yabuki and like the insert on the first volume was like, oh yeah, this is like a niche, this will have a niche audience. And I'm like, I must be that niche audience because it's like it has gender, it has like a romance that develops, and like they don't start dating officially here, but it's like they are both aware that they are into each other. It just takes so many elements of like things I like in storytelling and like combines it all. And it's like I've enjoyed some sort of like rom-coms where the misunderstandings is kind of like fucking Gamers from 2017.
Yeah, which
like
one,
it.
Yes, I remember
It's
you
like
talking about that. Yeah,
I think I even mentioned it in the video that like the misunderstandings are the point, and like it really like runs with that.
No, my personal take on the will they won't they is because like I understand if you like stories where the romance gets started relatively early and most of the stories is about exploring that romance, great. Then you have stories like and I think when I think about because Kimi ni Todake, where it's like if you only watch the anime, like the confession happens at the end and they get together, but that's like there's literally a season 3 coming out like next year, and the manga goes on for probably even further than season 3 will go to, so it's like over half the manga is the two main characters in a relationship, right? So it's like, sometimes you do have the slow burns. It's sometimes you get stories like Nisekoi where it ends with the confession. And I'm, generally fine with all of them. Like I like like literally between like Nisekoi, Kimi ni Todake, and Ore Monogatari, where they get into a relationship at the start of it. It's like there's all 3 different examples of the spectrum being represented, and I like all those manga a lot, right? So, but part of the reason I find a specific appeal in the stories like Nisekoi, where I guess to like I'm reading Yanchigal no Anjo-san or Nagatoro or Sono Bisuke, where there are more of the like it takes a while for the romance to get started. What's the fucking glasses girl one? I forget the exact name. It's my brain's just not working because I just happen to have read a few of those recently, and what I like about them is I like rooting for the character, right? Because like it's kind of like if you watch a action scene, it's not fun if the character just like wins, right? Like you want to see them struggle and get back up, right? So in a romance sense, that's like them working up those feelings of making the leap to confess, right? Because like especially personally, like part of the reason I connect with some of those main characters is lack of feelings of feelings of lacking self-worth and like, you know, maybe not being good, like it's kind of hard for me to maybe just get behind a character who's just like gonna ask out a girl they like, because like, well, that's not like me at all. But also I'm not in a relationship and I never have been, so you know, you know, I'm not gonna make judgments about the kind of people who these series like market themselves towards. But that is you know, and if you feel that's an over, like someone who likes the stories of the characters who get together quickly, like, yeah, that's great. There's absolutely, like, you know, go for it. Like, that's awesome. But I just, like, I don't know. We can live with, you know, but I guess, like, you know, if the will they, won't they over stories get kind of overrepresented, represented, that's fair. But, I don't know. It's personally not a sticking point for me. I'm just going to read whatever and like it or don't like it or whatever. So I don't know, that's just my take. But anyway, that's not really related to Ayakashi Triangle.
It's also kind of like Matsuri, like, oh, we shouldn't start dating until I'm a guy, because if you go out with me as a girl, then that's like cheating. And Suzu's just like, whatever, I'm gonna try and kiss you now. And she's even like, if you want to do things in the proper order, it's like, we already kissed. I didn't say it before, but like my Omokage did it. So she's just like, she's just going for it.
Yeah, and
and she like throws it back, like, so you're saying we should get married then?
No, this is like, you mentioned it sort of coming into focus, and it's like, no, this is where Suzu, unrestrained, like she's entering her final form of just like being horny as shit. So because now that she, you know, she knows it's mutual, she doesn't have to hold back. Except for, you know, because she, you know, only for Matsuru's sake, and now Matsuru's like, well, I do love you, and it's like, oh, good.
And I like the gag where Shirogane, you know, jumps in like, don't make out at a shrine, and in the next panel it's just like, you know, they're like apologizing.
And then we get a little cutaway to Soga where fucking Ponosuke is like, I don't know, his face where he's like squishing his cheeks together and he's like, bird. He tells Soga, and Soga's like putting on airs about not giving a shit, but then he thinks about Matsuru's smile, and it's like, oh, he's trapped. He's
slamming his head into the wall.
He's done, son. Just, it's over.
The recurring like bit of Ponosuke just screaming out like "Master" when it's like something dramatic happens.
And they're holding hands. It's hella fucking gay and cute. Good manga that we're not done with yet. With, I don't know, I said good manga like we were, like it was over, but it is over, I guess. This discussion. 4 hours of recording later.
Peak fiction. I love these characters.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for your video, but also we have one more episode to go, which we'll be reading chapter 70 to 144, which will be the rest of the manga, which it'll probably be a shorter discussion. Maybe, probably, because I feel like...
Maybe.
I can't trust myself, and it does not look like this is going to be one of the... It's like top... It's still top 4. Like, I think if it gets cut down a little bit, it's going to be surpassed by, like... It's going to be comparable to, like, Naruto final part, and then One Piece, Wano, and maybe Whole Cake Island, and the last part. And yeah, it's going to be... This is a meaty one. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.